everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Okay, this first one is just the actual, like, this is whenever they started working on the case type document. And even if it's something just as simple as this, as in they wrote it up and said they were notified by, Moscow that there was a situation that they needed to, help and assist in. We're going to read it because it's part of this. Now, this one was written by Talbot. His name has been around since the very, very beginning. And notice it says supplemental number original. Why is that doing that? I'm going to undo that thing. Okay, original. It's the same way with Moscow PD, how they had like an additional one on the very first file, and then supplemental one started after that. There's always like an original one. So that's why it's like that. Okay, this one was written up on the 13th, like actually the day of, and it shows that they were contacted at 12:22. So in like 20-ish minutes or whatever, they were contacting ISP and being like, broskies, we need some help. And it was, I guess, Talbot that got assigned to it. So he's the one who ended up writing up the document. On November 13th, 2022, the Moscow Police Department requested the Idaho State Police District 2 investigations to assist with a multiple person homicide located at 1122 King Road, Moscow, Latell County, Idaho. And it just says that he was assigned as the lead. Now let's see, is this, okay, I think this is the one that's Jack. Okay, this is Jack Schwalers. I don't know if there's another one for him in this. I haven't been able to go through all of it yet. The way that this is written itself is just kind of strange to me. And it's not like I'm saying that I don't understand the way that ISP's formatting is, right? Because I don't think it's a formatting issue. It instantly lists Kaylee as victim number 2. And then goes to Maddie as number 3, Xana as number 4, and Ethan as number 5. Why are we instantly listing this as like a second victim? Like there's supposed to be another person. I don't understand why it's written that way. And then we have where they actually have the person's information that they're talking to. And I'm guessing this one right here would be Jack Schwalers. I don't remember whether he was 22 or 23 at the time, but they have the birth year and then the age, and that's it. But there's 2 people here. There's 2 guys here. Now, this shows that a biological sample was taken, and there is a flash drive that has the interview audio on it. They drive out to Boise to speak to him. Oh, they didn't get rid of the entire date of birth right here. Wow. Their editing is really just like crap. Okay, can I get this bigger? Or does it make it smaller? I want it to be as big as it can. Ugh. Okay. On November 16th, 2022, at approximately 3:16 p.m., Idaho State Police investigators, Lieutenant Catlin, I'm going to say that it's Catlin because it's C-A-T and not C-A-I-T like Caitlin. So Lieutenant Catlin and I interviewed, and then it's blanked out, but it's Jack by the things that he says that matches the MPD reports. Y'all will catch on. If you guys remember, it'll sound pretty familiar, but there is something new in here, which I do find interesting, and I posted it in the community tab. We'll get to that down in a minute. It's this highlighted stuff down here. The interview took place at his parents' house located at blank in Boise. During the interview, he stated the following. His residence at school was blank in Moscow. His residency is approximately 200 to 300 feet from the location of the homicide. It had been a little nerve-wracking going outside of his apartment, which I don't know how nerve-wracking it could have possibly been, because he pretty much took off the next morning, didn't he? And if he didn't really know what was going on, I don't know. I just find that an interesting statement. Okay. He knew some of the victims. He knew Maddie and Xana. He had met Kaylee the night before, but did not realize that she was one of the victims until later. And remember, in the Moscow documents, he talks about this. He mentions how he didn't know who Kaylee was, that she had approached him or started talking to him or something like that at the corner club, and then realized later that she was there with Maddie, something like that. So that tracks. That tracks. And I guess, it makes sense that just because you know one doesn't mean you know both. So that's not really a big deal. He did not know the male victim, which would be Ethan, which sort of makes sense too, because I don't think that we ever heard of any connections really between the two of them either. At this point in the interview, his mother arrived and was present for the remainder. He said he had known Mogen since their freshman year, and they were in the same pledge class for the fraternities and sororities on campus. Mogen had dated some of his friends and had positive interactions with blank girlfriend in the past. So I guess his own girlfriend in the past. Blank had classes with Mogen, and they had done homework together periodically. He and Mogen had a lot of friends in common as well. He supposed he had met what? He supposed he had met Goncalves prior to that night, but did not recall specifically. So they probably just like asked him, since Kaylee and Maddie were so close and you were sort of close with Maddie, is there a possibility that you might have met Kaylee before the corner club? That's probably what was asked there. He had never met Kernodle's boyfriend Ethan before. He heard Chapin belonged to the blank fraternity, Sigma Chi. Chapin was also a year younger than him in school. Mogen was dating one of Blank's fraternity brothers, that would be Jake, whom Blank believed lived in Boise, and he was in Boise at the time that all of this happened. He had spoken to Blank earlier in the day on the 16th. He's a stand-up guy. Mogen's previous boyfriend was also one of Blank's friends and is also a nice guy. He and Mogen were mostly just on and off Blank friends. Maybe they weren't really dating, but it was more like a casual like hookup thing, and it was just like the two of them, that kind of thing. That's pretty common. Saturday night, which was November 12th, and into Sunday morning, November 13th, at the end of the game day, people went out to the bars. He ran into Mogen at the corner club. Mogen and Goncalves were going to leave the bar to go to John's Alley and asked him if he wanted to go with them. Now, we've been under the assumption the entire time that they left the corner club purposely to go to the grub truck before getting a ride to go home. It wasn't until the Moscow Police Department records came out that Jack said that there was, I believe in the document, he says party. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty positive I remember him claiming party. This is giving us a location. And I'm going to show you guys on the map. I had it up earlier, but then my stupid thing got all messed up and I had to restart stuff. And I'm going to look at the chat here for a minute. Do you guys remember what did you tell Adam footage? I know that it's a building that's owned by the church, because that's talked about in the Moscow Police Department records. And it's even talked about how the guy, I can't remember his name. If Heather is in here, then she knows his name. He even says that like it's his property and he could give him the footage. Was it the Bucer's coffee shop or something like that? I think that's it, but I'm not done indexing all of the MPD records. So I don't know exactly. I don't know. I'm not positive. Doug Wilson. Yeah, Doug Wilson is the guy. And it said like maybe it's the grub truck footage that he was talking about. I think you're right, Jackie. You're right. It was the bank. Never mind. You're right. Okay, I saw, why does this stupid thing keep hitting that? I saw the Bucer's coffee shop, and I guess my mind got them all twisted up. See, okay, that's why I'm glad I asked. Okay, let me get this pulled up so I can show y'all where this John's Alley place is at. It's called John's Alley Tavern. It's a 9-minute walk, but I'm going to add the 318 South Main to the middle of it so you guys can sort of see what this looks like. Pop that in there. Oh, how did it just do that? Hold on a second. In the world. Yes, Corner Club. And then John's Alley. Okay. Add destination, 318. Why are you being a little crackhead? 10-minute walk. Okay. Okay. So Corner Club is right here. It is a 9.5 to 10-minute walk if you go down this way. So John's Alley is over here, which I found interesting because the Umpqua Bank is right here, but it's just like something that's familiar. The 318 South Main Street for the grub truck, it shows that it's like right here in this area. So I guess like if they wouldn't have gone to the grub truck, then they maybe would have kept walking straight this way and then went this way to get down on 6th Street. But because they took the grub truck, like went to the grub truck instead, that's why I was trying to remember the name of the bank so that I could see which way they would have gone from there to see like what other places they might have them on camera. But I'm going to have to go back in and look at the documents because I can't remember straight off the bat what the name of the bank was. Because Umpqua is like past it, so that wouldn't be it. But yeah, I found that interesting that that matched because we've been sort of, again, told like the whole time that them going to get food was the reason sort of like for them leaving to go, you know, to leave the corner club, you know, besides the fact that it was going to be like 2 o'clock and it was closing time anyway. Like the grub truck was the point is pretty much like what we've been told the whole time. So that was just, you know, that was just interesting that that wasn't really true, that they ended up going like somewhere else. No, not with the timing. Not with the timing. It looks like they just like changed their minds. Because they like the timing that they left and got to the grub truck. Yeah, no, it definitely be more like, yeah, they just changed their minds. See, and I don't really know if he like was truly ditched either, because he like says in this something about how he told her to have a good night. So if they did just like leave, then he wasn't mad about it. He didn't say anything like bad to them. He was just like, okay, have a good night as they took off, is the way that he's telling it. It's the way that he's telling it. Okay. And then right here it says, on the way to John's Alley, Mogen and Goncalves decided to get food at the grub truck instead. So they gave up going to another bar and decided to just go and get food. So it sounds like he did agree to go with them and then just like went along with them changing their mind. Or maybe, I don't know what time John's Alley would have closed, but this was like a 2 o'clock time where most places like that are supposed to close. I guess laws can be different in certain places. But I don't know like how they thought they were going to get to that other bar by walking and like have time to even do anything. Unless they were going to be purposely going there to meet up with someone. I wonder if there was somebody they were going to meet up with and then like they changed their minds. Because there's already been so many players that we didn't know about, right? There's a whole nother woman, LM, that was getting ready with Kaylee and Maddie at King Road and took the car with them to the corner club. And I'm pretty sure that she's the same girl that's home with Dylan later and is watching Vampire Diaries with them before the girls get back. Because she doesn't ride back with them. We can see them leaving separately. But this LM chick is like all over the place and no one really knows who the frick she really is. I have questions, bro. I have so many questions. So then it comes to this and I'm like, okay, I think back to the grub truck footage and I'm like, okay, Kaylee was like in her phone, right? So what if there was like, because she was talking to a couple different guys, which is neither here nor there, but what if one of the guys that she was talking to, because she was in town, she was going to go like walk over to this other bar where he was or something like that. And then they decided to get food instead. And so she's like texting that person like, no, never mind. We're going to get food and go home. We don't know how many other players are in this because so many details have been completely hidden. And for what? Why not tell us, well, they were going to originally go to another place, but then changed their minds last minute and decided to go get food. And to some people, that's neither here nor there. But last minute plan changes can make things happen, can cause domino effects. So not knowing that and thinking this whole time that the intention was just to go get food and go home, that does change a couple of things. I mean, not really too much, but it still changes the dynamic. It changes the intention. To me, it's important. To me, it's important. Okay, number 9. Blank was at the grub truck with them, but was hanging out in the back because he was not getting any food. Someone in a silver sedan picked up Mogen and Goncalves. Silver Toyota Prius is what Eric Gower was apparently driving. He assumed it was one of their friends. He told Mogen to have a good night. See? I mean, that's him saying that. We don't really know because you can't really hear it on the footage, but he's making it seem as if it wasn't a big deal. The blank designated driver shift had already ended at approximately 2 a.m. I don't know whose name that is. Because he's seeing Maddie and Kaylee getting picked up, but then he mentions like somebody else's name, I guess, and says designated driver shift had already ended at 2:00. Now, remember, we heard all of a sudden that David B was like some drunk driver person, like sober driver person. All of a sudden, like for some reason that was like super kept quiet, even though his car, according to his own face in the Amazon series, he was like literally driving around in that area at 4:00 in the morning. Magically, he said it himself. So I guess we could, I mean, I know that a lot of people, myself included, believe that multiple passes that we see on those cameras are probably that damn cop car, probably the undercover cop car doing their thing. But it could be David B too. We don't really know what kind of car he drives. I mean, the tan sedan looks white in the freaking footage. Remember, we slowed it down after ISP 15x'd it, not ISP, the Idaho Statesman 15x'd it, even though we knew that there was another vehicle that Molly saw, and they sped right through it instead of letting us see it. They know damn well how important that is, but for some reason they chose to speed past it and make it like it was not important. Well, whenever we slowed it down over her and replayed it, that damn tan car sure looked white. And even in the Bolo stuff, like in the emails from Pullman and all the correspondences that we've seen with Moscow PD, they're not even really quite sure what color the car is. They know that it can be like a range of different shades of different things. It didn't become this white Hyundai Elantra really until it had to be this white Hyundai Elantra, in my opinion. But let's just go ahead and continue. Okay. I think that's who he's maybe talking about, or at least another like fraternity dude that had some sort of shift. It could be David B, though. He had a good coat on, so he walked home. He thought it took him 20 to 30 minutes to walk home from the grub truck. He got home around 3:00 and went to bed. That sounds more like an hour. That sounds more like it took you an hour. Not 20, 30 minutes, because that whole situation happened. Let's just round it to 1:50 because they were literally a handful of minutes away from the house. I can't remember the exact timestamp at this point in time. So no, that's more like an hour. Okay. Blank showed me on a map the way he walked home, and the way he described did not pass the residence of the homicide scene. Well, that's just what he's telling you. So unless you have him on camera, you really can't validate that. Sunday, November 13th, Blank woke up around 10 a.m. to watch NFL football. He left his house and went to Floyd's, a dispensary across the border in Washington. It's also one that is in the discovery, or at least in the case documents, talking about how apparently on one of the cameras at Floyd's, there's a vehicle that they're claiming to be suspect vehicle 1. I believe that location was the first location we ever heard be mentioned. And it was by the defense, and it was Ann Taylor, and she stood up and said that the car that is on the Floyd's cameras is not Bryan Kohberger's car. That's one of the first things that she said. And that really mattered because Floyd's would be like the first business, I think right before the Moscow line, that would have captured the car if it would have actually come from Pullman. But it wouldn't be the car if the car actually went the other direction towards the park like they're claiming. So Floyd's has been mentioned, for a while now. He couldn't remember if he went to Floyd's before he started watching football or if he started watching football and then went to Floyd's. Well, I guess what we would need to know is what time this football game started. I don't know what time the football game started. I just know that this football game is most likely the exact same football game that the Goncalveses were apparently watching whenever shit went down. And they're in 2 different time zones. It's going to be like an hour off, I'm pretty positive. I know it's off whenever it comes to Boise and Moscow. And I'm pretty sure that the time zone thing has been a thing when it comes to where the Goncalveses live too. So that's what I'm trying to see. Like, is it actually 10 a.m.? Because that would definitely matter. If he got up to watch a game that started at 10 a.m., he would have, it only matters if it matters, right? But if he would have gotten up at 10 o'clock in the morning to watch a game that started at 10 o'clock in the morning, there's no way he could have left and went to do anything and still gotten back in time for the game. You know what I mean? Again, it might not be here nor there because it's like the next day. But when it talks about how he left and went by that area and didn't see cops or anything, that's whenever I'm like, okay, I'd really like to know the actual timestamp for when the game started to sort of go and figure all that out. Because if he left after the game, way after 10 o'clock in the morning to go to the dispensary and he passed by King Road and didn't see anything, to me, because football games are kind of long. Wouldn't that be closer to noon? So, okay, so I guess I need to see what time Floyd's opens on a Sunday. Because if he went by afterwards and didn't see anything. Well, on Sunday they open at 8 a.m. So it's still plausible that he could have gotten up early and driven over to the dispensary before the game started at 10. Is it? See, I don't watch football. That's what I said. From day one. From day one, especially since there was multiple adults and one of their teenagers was also a mother. Like, not to say that that's like something to harp on, but that just proves that they were capable of being home alone. There was no reason for both of them to not, for both of them to stay there. In London? That's wild. That's cray-cray. Yeah, and like I said, this might be like neither here nor there, but whenever he talks about how he like went by the house, I'm like, okay, well now it matters because you drove by the house. You apparently drove by the house. What time was that? Because we have only, 2 hours between this 10 a.m. time and the time that the 911 call came in. And we have people claiming that at 9 o'clock in the morning, the damn front door was wide open. And that was a rumor in the very, very beginning, but now it's in a whole police report that we read through the Moscow reports. And I don't even think it was like I don't even think it was a random neighbor, unless it is a random neighbor, but the guy worked at the stadium or something like that. Something with the stadium was involved in that whole situation. Yeah, I guess that's the only reason why I'm like harping on the time. Okay. Right here, though. He thought it was weird because he drove past the scene on his way to Floyd's and didn't see any police or anything out of the ordinary. Blank drove a blank. Why would you think it's weird? See, that's what I mean. Like if it was after the football game and it's like sometime around noon and you drove by and you didn't see any cops, but you knew there was a situation, then you would think that it was weird. But why do you think it's weird that you don't see cops outside King Road? Why do you find that strange? I guess maybe because now he knows like the time that it happened, but it's still just like a straight up weird statement to make, in my opinion. During the morning, people called him to see if he knew what was going on down the street at the homicide scene. Blank didn't believe them and walked outside to see. Okay, so then he would have had to have left and been home before the 911 call. Blank had to walk down the street to see the resident/homicide scene. There was a rumor of an unconscious person, which seemed believable. It says a lot, I guess. During the group chat between the pledge classes from the fraternities and sororities, kids realized people were missing and something more than just a person passed out might have happened. Most of his chats are via Snapchat, of course. Some of the family members of the victims started letting people know about the homicide before the news did. See, this part I have issues with because we have the Goncalveses telling us that before the cops like showed up and knocked on their door, that their kids, their minor children, were getting like calls through Snapchat and Facebook Messenger and things like that, telling them what was going on. So I don't know if this is about the Goncalveses, because I feel like they might have had a hand in some of the very first mainstream media insanity, or at least somebody in their family did, because the very, very, very first big report about this case was from a station from like closer up north Idaho, and it reported a pew-pew situation. And that's what they've told us from the very beginning, that Kaylee's mom's niece said to them on the phone whenever she called and told them that she thought that something had happened to Kaylee. It was a pew-pewing at that house. So that's why I think that they had a hand in some of the insanity from the very beginning. And maybe it was just because they couldn't get any answers and they thought that maybe if they went to the news, or maybe like asked the news if they had any information, then maybe they would be able to get information from the news. But instead the news just like took whatever they said about what the niece said and like ran with it as the story. That could be what happened. Yes, Jackie. We were watching football like every other family in America, is exactly what he said. Yeah. No, down here, the liquor stores are completely closed on a Sunday. And you can't go to like Kroger and buy a bottle of wine or anything like that until like after 12 afternoon. So yeah, I thought so too. And that's because he probably knows they should have gotten their asses up and done more. But then again, look what else they did. They hid the fact that they were in the urgent care that morning. The first time in Christy and Steve's entire relationship of decades and decades long that he ever gets sick. And it just so happens to be at around the same time all this shit's going down in Moscow, and they hid it for this entire time. That just came out like what, like 6 or 7 months ago, maybe? It could have been longer than that, but that came out of an interview out of Christy's mouth about him having something. He ended up being diagnosed with something, apparently. But just the coincidence in that is insane. So maybe that's why they said, you know, like every other family in America. So I don't know. I always thought it was pretty defensive myself. I mean, I know that Maddie's mom and stepdad were on the way down there, but that's them. Y'all could have definitely done more than sit around. Yeah, that's been my biggest problem. That was the first time that family rubbed me wrong, was right there. Okay. So again, let's be honest. We don't know for sure if this statement is about the Goncalveses. We don't. We can assume, I can assume, y'all can whatever. We don't know for sure, but it's possible. It's possible, but it could be somebody else. Number 13. Blank heard a lot of people were packing up and leaving. Blank felt jumpy, even leaving his apartment and walking out to his car. He would be able to do classes online, so he packed up the next morning, Monday the 14th, and left. So then if that's the truth, then we need some better explanations for the documents about the blood in his bathroom. Because I always thought that it was strange that it said that, like, he put in a maintenance request for something, but it was, like, during the time frame that he wasn't even supposed to be back in Moscow. Because remember, in the reports, it says that there was a spot on his door, and they tested it, and it wasn't blood, so they didn't go in. Then they get a call from a maintenance guy who was called in on a maintenance request because there's blood smeared on like the shower curtain. I think they said the toilet handle, some other spot in the bathroom. And then like, I think the hallway in the living room, like, did it say the ceiling? I can't remember exactly. I'm going off my freaking memory on that part. But all of that tested positive for blood. So if you went straight home after the grub truck, and then you left the next morning to go to your parents' house in Boise, like, where'd the blood in your bathroom come from? Then, homeboy, unless it happened like that night. But then again, the cops that are talking to him, they're like, he doesn't have any scrapes or cuts or anything on his body. Well, then where'd the freaking blood come from? Unless he went back and it was something that happened like in the short period of time that he was back over there. Yeah, we're going to have to go back and look at the dates. That's why I'm indexing all those things so I can like index these, index Moscow, and then put like this one is referenced in this one for the Idaho State Police is also what's talked about in this one for Moscow PD, and like cross-reference them to try to put this together because this is just so ridiculous. Okay. More questions. He had only been to the residence where the homicide took place maybe once. When he did go there, he was pretty sure it was all different people living there. He heard there was a party there earlier that day that some of his friends went to. That would be, see, that's not really how it went, though. Like, it sounds like Xana was the one trying to get people to come over to her house, to their house. But then as soon as everyone got together, they went across to the Whites. And that's pretty much where, like, the pre-gaming all happened. So yes and no, because it really technically happened next door at the other apartment. Blank went to the corner club by himself because he had friends who went there and worked there. Blank, Mogen, and Goncalves were the only ones in their group who left the corner club and went to the grub truck. Of the victims, only Mogen and Goncalves were out at the bar. Blank believed Kernodle and Chapin were still underage. Yeah. Blank thought the car in front of their house looked similar to the one who picked them up that night. What does this mean? Blank thought the car in front of their house looked similar to the one who picked them up that night. Did they show him the 11-12 footage and ask him if he recognized the car, and did he say that it looked like the Uber driver guy, the Eric guy? I call it Uber because that's how they keep calling it. But is that what's happening here? Because he's claiming that he walked home a different way. And it's not saying what time that he would have like left to go to the club. Did it say what time he left to go? That's a weird statement to say unless he's been like shown footage of something. It seemed like a friend had picked them up, not a random person, meaning that Eric was probably way too friendly with them. That's why it looked so comfortable, Mr. Married. People usually use designated drivers from their fraternities or sororities. He thought maybe Kernodle and Chapin might have picked Mogen and Goncalves up. What? So I guess he's trying to say that the car that picked up Maddie and Kaylee from the grub truck looked a lot like one of the vehicles outside the house. Maybe the little white car that's parked outside in that Maddie's. I don't remember exactly the vehicles because they didn't really play a part in anything that we know of anyway. So that's interesting. But it's probably just because it's like a little light colored car. But that's a weird thought. He thought maybe Kernodle and Chapin might have picked up Mogen and Goncalves. I wonder if it's just because of how like comfortable they seemed with the driver. He must have like heard something, some sort of conversation maybe. But I don't see how because he like instantly took off. This part's confusing. Okay. Blank doesn't usually go to the parties. He usually goes to the bar. He heard a rumor there was a party at the victim's residence earlier. Kernodle sometimes would get a little crazy with partying, and blank. Mogen just uses alcohol. Well, we know what this is probably referencing then. Because people get mad now that we're talking about substances with the victims. We tried to not talk about that stuff here on this channel until we had to talk about that on this channel. Okay. And we only have to now talk about this on this channel because it's in the freaking police reports that they found blue powdery shit and rolled up dollar bill or whatever the frick they said in her room on her desk. Now there are substances involved. Okay. So whenever we discuss it now, it's because we have to. It's evidence. It was collected. It's what we're talking about. That must be what this means right here because they're also referencing what everyone else might or might not do. Goncalves, he thought, just drank alcohol only. He doesn't remember meeting Goncalves prior to that night. After the incident, he heard rumors of Goncalves having a stalker. Any girl who belonged to the blank sorority should know about the stalker information. Mogen and Goncalves, he believed, both belonged to the blank sorority. No, they did not belong to the same sorority. They actually, that's one of the interesting parts in the book is that it sort of does lay out how pathetically disgusting this stuff is. Like, I get the whole like, oh, branching out and meeting new people thing, but whenever they say that the whole like point is to find the people that do know each other and separate them on purpose, that's like you don't want like people to have discussions about how effed up you are, so you want to take away the people that they're comfortable with. That's like isolation. That's abuse. That's what that is. So whenever the book said all that, I was like, oh, well, that really does make a lot more sense, which also makes more sense for how later on both of them decided it wasn't for them. And they moved out and they did their own thing. Blank had an ex-girlfriend he was trying to get back with. For most of the past few years, he had a girlfriend who went to a different school, so he hadn't been hanging out with a lot of people regularly. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. For most of the past few years, he had a girlfriend who went to a different school, so he hadn't been hanging out with a lot of people regularly. So he stayed to himself. Okay. Blake had no idea who could have committed these homicides. Well, Jack, I'm just going to say Jack. Jack had no idea who could have committed these homicides. Usually, the craziest thing that happened are people getting MIPs and DUIs. He hadn't heard any rumors about why this could have happened. He thought the only reason someone might have acted out like this is for love. And remember, they had to come out and like ixnay the crime of passion thing like super early on, but that was still something that a lot of people held on to because there's a lot of forced violence. There's a lot of forced violence. And I know that at some point in here, they try to say that there's a possibility that he could have like committed these crimes within like 2 minutes and some change and 3 minutes and some change because of his run. Okay, so we're not going to take into account his dexterity issues that are diagnosed. We're not going to take into account that he cannot like handle a knife whatsoever. We're going to take into account how long it takes to not sit, but to like not only get someone to where they're no longer fighting you back, but then to continue to puncture them over and over and over again. I'm sorry. The stuff that they say in here, it just goes really, 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 really far when it comes to the timeline. But whenever you think about how many wounds Xana had, when you think about how many wounds that Kaylee had and how bad her face was destroyed compared to Ethan, compared to Maddie, that takes time. Maybe not like 20 minutes, but it still takes longer than 2.5 minutes for 4 people in a 3-story house and all this crazy ish to have happened. So I don't know what in the frickin' crap they're talking about with that. Yeah, okay. He heard there are videos of him at the grub truck with Mogen and Goncalves. The grub truck live streams video on Twitch TV. News outlets have identified him from that video and have called him. Damn, already? Because this was on the 17th, wasn't it? That was fast. That was fast. Jack left Moscow Monday morning around noon. He traveled home by way of Ontario, Oregon, instead of New Meadows because he doesn't like driving through the mountains. With consent, I collected swabs from blank. Blake had no apparent injuries to his hands, forearms, head, or neck areas. The interview ended at approximately 4:02 p.m. For complete details, review audio recording of interview. Swabs and audio of the interview were submitted into evidence under tag number. But who's this secondary person? Because here we have like this one right here, and I'm going to assume that this part right here is Jack, because this would be like his Moscow address where he goes to school, and this one would be the Boise address, his like parents' house. So who's this other white male who's a year older that they're talking about? Why is there another person listed in here if there's not another person listed in here? Unless like for some reason they would have like the designated driver's shift that already ended that maybe couldn't come and get him, but that'd be super pointless. There's literally nothing in here for there being another person. Okay. Now this interview right here, based off of him talking about getting kicked out and like all the other things, it's got to be Cole. Cole B. His last name always eludes me. I want to say Barenberg or some crap like that. Like it's different. It's definitely it's different, but it's Cole. He is the guy that they tested the clippings for Maddie's left fingernails, and apparently his came out to be just as inconclusive as Bryan Kohberger's was and the other people that were listed in that document. Now, the only difference is that the defense then took the DNA samples and had independent testing done on Bryan Kohberger's to completely exclude them, his DNA. Like they went further than the initial testing did. I don't know if the state ever did the same for the rest of the DNA samples from that they tested, but that's where that came from. And the only reason I'm going to assume that he was tested is because he got kicked out of the corner club after a situation that happened with Maddie. So if they like got rid of this guy as a suspect as early as it sounds like, then I don't think at all that this is the guy whose cell phone they were tracking down and who the other lead suspect was. That has to be an entirely different person based off of deductive reasoning here. I don't know who it could be. I don't know if there's going to be somebody else's name later on in this that makes more sense. But they damn well were looking at a whole nother human, her Payne's own face on the stand before they had Bryan. And then they just forgot all about it. And they talked about getting his cell phone records and a couple other things without telling us like who it was. So maybe we'll see something about that, but I highly doubt it. Okay. Cole B is who this is about again. This was reported on 11/18, and this was written by Detective Sergeant Ryan Hoxie. Maybe it's Hoxie. On November 17th, 2022, Idaho State Police Detective Lieutenant Catlin and Detective Sergeant Hoxie conducted an interview with blank. The interview was in reference to the murder of Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana, Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, which occurred at 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho on November 13th, 2022. They pretty much just do that in all of it. The interview took place in front of blank's residence located at blank in Boise. Now, notice how with this one, this is strictly about Maddie. It doesn't have all of the victims' names, just Maddie's, because he only had some sort of connection to Maddie, not the rest of them. And then here's his information. I guess I wasn't aware that he was 27. I wasn't under the impression that he was that much older than them. So that's kind of interesting, I guess. They ended up taking a swab from him, and there is an interview audio for this. On November 17th, 2022, at approximately 1:02 p.m., Idaho State Police Detective Lieutenant Catlin and I conducted an interview, and it's the same as the first part. Okay. Blank reported the following during the interview. I'm just going to go ahead and say Cole. His roommate, blank, I don't know who his roommate was, had a dart tournament at Moose Lodge, which is next door to the Corner Club. Wasn't there an incident there with an axe or something? I'm pretty positive there was. And we didn't really talk about it. We've mentioned it, but I know there's some channels that like deep dug into it. And I think there was like some body cam from that came out. If I remember correctly. At approximately 5 or 6 p.m., he went to the Moose Lodge and started drinking. Moose Lodge had a veteran special. They were at Moose Lodge until approximately 9 p.m., and then they went to Mingles Bar and Grill for about an hour. After Mingles, they went to the Corner Club, but at this point in the evening, he was intoxicated. He did not remember getting kicked out of the Corner Club and did not know why he was kicked out. Okay. At approximately 11:21 p.m., him and Maddie Mogen took a picture together while they were at the Corner Club. Mogen sent it in a group text to blank. Also sent with the photo was a text message saying, "Get to the club," something. He didn't remember taking the photo with Mogen and didn't remember who Mogen was with. This was also the first time he'd seen Mogen outside of class and school projects. Okay. He didn't remember much from the evening, but said he walked home from the Corner Club. His address was blank in Moscow. His roommate blank got home around 1:30 to 1:40 a.m. His other roommate blank told him he got home about 30 minutes before at approximately 1, and that was the end of the night for him. His roommates are blank and blank, and he must be living with a couple. On November 13th, 2022, he woke up at approximately noon. Okay. He learned of the incident through a vandal alert student email that afternoon, which explained the situation. An hour after receiving the first vandal alert, he received another, which told him there was no suspect and to remain vigilant. A third vandal alert was sent out that evening while he was at work, which had details of how many victims there were. He didn't know Mogen was one of the victims until Monday afternoon when he received an email from his professor of marketing. Blank. Is the professor's name like 2 letters? What's that? Okay. He, Mogen, and blank are in marketing at the university and worked together on group projects. He, Mogen, and blank. Why are we mentioning a third person? And maybe it's his roommate? And maybe that's why they're being mentioned as being in the same class? Because why else would you bring a third person into that conversation? Are in marketing blank at the university? Oh, are they like hiding the something for the class name? Why? Okay, at the university and worked together on group projects. They were working on a project for blank, which was a cafe in town Mogen worked for. When they worked on projects together, they would meet and work in the basement of the Albertsons building on campus. He hadn't ever been to Mogen's house and didn't know until recently where she lived. So they were working on something together for marketing for the Mad Greek. He worked at blank in Moscow and has worked blank for 8 years in total. As he transferred colleges, he moved stores with blank. His boss said the store carried old K-bar knives, but they were an older clearance item. He didn't know what kind of sheath a K-bar knife would come with. He didn't know Kaylee Goncalves and didn't remember seeing her at the corner club. He didn't know any of the victims besides Mogen. Mogen was the only person from the house he spoke with, and it was mainly related to class projects. He'd only talked to Mogen approximately 4 or 5 times throughout the school year. They mainly used text messaging to communicate. He read us the group text he, Mogen, and blank used. Must be the person that they have school stuff with. So she was trying to get whoever this other partner, like school partner is, to like come out with them too. The last text from Mogen was the photo and text message at the corner club. Blake responded the following day, which was the last text in the thread. Oh boy. I wonder what time. Oh, that would be like crazy if it was afterwards and they still like didn't know. And yeah, okay. He was attending his last semester at the university and he thought Mogen was going to finish in 2023. He started college at Treasure Valley Community College, transferred to Utah Tech University, and from 2017 to 2019, he started attending the University of Idaho. In 2019, he joined the Army Reserve as a culinary specialist. After 2 years, he went back to the University of Idaho to finish his schooling. He never heard of any issues Mogen had with anyone. He did not know if Mogen used any narcotics. They never spoke of anything personal. He didn't have a car and walked wherever he needed to go around the campus. He rode the bus home to Boise and borrowed his brother's pickup while he was in town. Blank did not have any injuries on his hands, arms, or face. At approximately 1:36 p.m., Blank consented to a DNA sample. Idaho State Police Detective, I'm going to say that's probably Mylar, but I'll just be safe and say Miller, arrived on scene and collected a DNA sample from Blank, which I took custody of and submitted it into evidence for processing. At approximately 1:38 p.m., we concluded the interview. So that's Cole. That's Cole. Now here we get to Dylan's interview. She says a lot of stuff that don't make sense. She says a lot of stuff that contradicts everything else. And again, I know that this is just a report and it's not Dylan verbatim because it's somebody writing a report based off of being in the room and going back over the audio and writing it down. It's no different than what I do. It's no different than what anyone on the camera does. They go in, they listen, they take notes, they come out and they talk about it themselves. It's no different. Now, granted, there's been a lot of different people writing up reports when it comes to anything that anybody has said. But we cannot sit here and believe that every time something is inconsistent in somebody's statement, it's because the police are the ones who are putting it down incorrectly. The person could literally just be freaking lying and not being able to keep their story straight. And considering the fact that there's now valid proof in black and white that has been submitted as evidence that was supposed to be at trial to prove that they were not sleeping the entire 8 hours and they're full of shit, we're not going to approach this like it's some sort of fiction. We're going to approach this like this is what she actually was telling to the police, because this is what she was trying to tell to the police. And we also know that she's lying, because there's no mention whatsoever of any of the activity, of any of the phone calls that she had, of calling her father, any of those things. Now, I don't know if Bethany admits to anything, because we didn't even know anything about some fake-ass toothache story until this past month in July. So I guess we will find out eventually. But Dylan's is quite long. I will say that. Dylan's is quite long. So I'm not really quite sure if we're going to go past Dylan's tonight. But we will go live tomorrow to continue. The same way that we always have. We're going to go through them until we're done going through them. And then see what else freaking pops up that's an official document, because that's what we have to do here. I mean, like, why wouldn't we go through the official documentation? I don't understand how people have issues with that, but whatever. Okay, anyway. This is Victoria Gooch. I'm going to have to just go ahead and say her name, even though I hate it. I hate this person's name so much. This is Detective Gooch and Sergeant Blaker. Now, remember, Blaker is the one who arrived on scene with Brett Payne at 4 o'clock. They both wrote the PCA. One of them was used for whatever was given to the public, and the other one was used for what was sent over to Pennsylvania and was also attached to the documentation from Washington. That was Blaker's. Okay, so it shows here, what date was this written on? Okay, so it says from 11/17/22. I just don't know if that's accurate. Yeah, maybe it is. It's hard to tell because they have like this reported date up here that says 11/20, but then they says from date 11/17. But I guess we just really have to like read the actual summary to know for sure. Now let's see what they have listed right here. So this is just a female witness. This says nothing. Okay, they're not putting anything else on here. Just this portion of it. Okay. Now, this says on November 17th, 2022, at approximately 12:05 p.m., myself, Idaho State Police Detective Victoria Gooch, and Moscow Police Department Sergeant Dustin Blaker interviewed Dylan. I don't know why they have her name blocked out. It's so stupid. At her residence, blank, in Boise, at her parents' house. Technically her house, but yeah. Well, I guess her dad's. The interview occurred with blank's attorney present via computer, an attorney in Moscow, Idaho, with the law firm Sullivan Law Offices. The interview was also audio recorded by me and Sergeant Blaker, and the thumb drive was tagged. Okay. This is how it starts. And get ready, because again, this is a pretty long one. She is a sophomore at the University of Idaho studying pre-physical therapy. She has been a University of Idaho student for both years, freshman and this year. She has been residing at the residence where this incident occurred since August 2022. Her friend blank and she moved into the residence, and the other female roommates she knew through their sorority blank, which would probably be Bethany. Maddie and Xana prior to this year. I don't know. Oh, this is the name of the sorority. Okay. Prior to this year, and had also met Kaylee before, but Kaylee belonged to another sorority. She explained Kaylee was a senior in school. She described Xana as being a year older than herself. She also described 2 additional friends, blank and blank, but they were not residents in the house. So who are these people? This is a short name. She explained blank introduced her to Xana last year. Both blank and blank reside in blank apartments, so the whites next door probably, an apartment complex on campus that houses sorority members. Or maybe it wasn't the one next door. Because this says on campus, and that wouldn't be technically on campus. I wonder who these 2 people are. She described the layout of their residence and where each of the roommates resided, paraphrased based on blank's description of their residence. When you walk in, there's a door. There is downstairs with a bathroom and blank bedroom, which would be Bethany's bedroom. When you walk into the door, there is a hallway with her bedroom and the kitchen and the sliding door. Well, that'd be upstairs now. And upstairs is Kaylee's room and a bathroom and Maddie's room. Xana is on the same floor as her bedroom, as Dylan's bedroom. Initially, she was asked to describe what the girls did on the 12th of November, but she described there was a ball on Friday night, November 11th, 2022, the sorority ball. Now, that part is interesting because she's not asked about Friday night. She's asked about Saturday. And instead of starting with Saturday, she starts with that. And that's also one of the very first things we heard from the Goncalveses. And it struck everyone, because Christy said she was hesitant to go back even after this invitation, that she didn't want to go. But then she ended up getting approved for the Range Rover. And then she wanted to go and show it off to Maddie. And it was like a last minute decision to go, is how it's been told. Then more details started coming out. And we are made to believe that Dylan took her ass all the way to Kaylee's house. Hours and hours and hours away to ask Kaylee to be her +1 to this stupid thing. Then in the book, which I'll put the page in the community post or whatever later, I've showed it to you on a live before and like held it up to the camera. Most of you guys have like already known about this. The book with the interview of Josie and Hunter and Emily and all the freaking people, okay? They didn't go. They didn't go to the ball because apparently the way that Dylan and Bethany were no longer living at the sorority house made them, how do they put it? They wouldn't have had a warm welcome, is how the book puts it. And this is coming from, I'm assuming, Josie, because she's the one who's like interviewing with them and like hanging out with the Chapins and shit with Hunter. Or is that Emily? That's Emily. But Josie and Emily were both like talking about this entire situation. How are we not going to ask questions about how Dylan literally took herself to go and ask Kaylee to her face to be there? We finally are told from people that were at the party on Friday that the girls weren't even going to be welcome, so nobody went. But then there's like fragments of, oh, they went but didn't stay long. Which one is it? Did they not go because they weren't going to be welcome there because they left living there? Or did they go for a minute and make an appearance and then leave and go party at King Road? Which one? And why are you mentioning it if they're not asking you about Friday, if they're asking you about Saturday? Why are you jumping into what happened on Friday night? It's sort of like on the 911 call whenever like she's asked about what's going on and she's like, well, basically, or pretty much at 4 o'clock or 4 a.m., however the frick she puts it, she instantly tries to go backwards instead of what's happening right now, what's being asked of you right now. Interesting tactic. She explained, see right here, she briefly attended. That doesn't even make any sense compared to what we've been told. She explained she started drinking at 4:30 p.m. on the 11th. So are we supposed to believe that you didn't go to bed on the 11th and that you stayed up drinking all the way through until the morning of the 13th? Is that why you're starting here? Like, why are you starting here? That's not what they asked you. Just a detail. She described the individuals at the ball, including her roommates, as well as Ethan and his blank. And all of that is all completely, you can't read a damn thing. And then their dates who were Fiji fraternity members, blank, blank, and blank, blank. Like, all of this is just insane. Kaylee Goncalves was blank date for the ball. Why doesn't this just say was her date for the ball? Because that's how it was supposed to go, right? But then, again, we're hearing differently. So which one was it? Why isn't something like this so, like, whatever? Why is something so simple not concreted fact yet? Why do we still have so many different things about something that apparently had nothing to do with anything? Make that make sense. Dylan described how she got home on Friday night by using an Uber. Why? Why do we need to know how you got home on Friday night? See what I mean? They didn't ask you about Friday. So why are you going into great detail about your Friday night? Dylan described how she got home on Friday night by using an Uber from the Pi blah, blah, blah ball to her residence. She explained she and her roommates normally have blank as their Uber driver, probably Eric, but not on the night of the 11th. She does not remember the name of the Uber driver on Friday night. This was around 8:30 p.m. She explained she and the roommates trust blank, probably Eric. She advised the party initially transitioned to the blank, but she got bored and wanted to go home. It was she, Maddie, and Xana, and Ethan regarding the roommates who attended the ball. Did they talk about him going to another dance on Friday in the book? So I could have sworn the only one that they went to that they talked about is the one where he went with his sister. I'm going to have to go back and read the book and see what these people that are apparently there and hanging out with them are claiming about what actually went on Friday. Eventually, a group of the blank event transitioned to blank and the other roommate's house, and there was a party that continued there until the early morning hours of November 12th, the Saturday. She requested to look at her cell phone during this point of the interview to verify the timeline. She was advised she could use her cell phone to provide times during her interview. So you're asked about Saturday the 12th. You instantly started on Friday, but then now that Friday's over, now you need to look at your screen to see what the timeline is you're supposed to actually tell them. Is she reading from like a freaking notepad? Okay. She advised the other individuals that came to the house on Friday night were blank. Initially, she said it was blank, but corrected herself to say not blank, but blank. What? What? So on Friday, she tried to say that this person came over, but then she changed her mind and said, no, not that person, but this person came over, who came to the house and blank as well as herself. What date was this? I'm sorry. What date was this? So on the 20th, you need to like look into your phone and see who you hung out with on Friday night before that? And then you get it wrong? That's a bit weird. A little strange. They were consuming large amounts of alcohol and playing music. She went to bed a little after 12:10 a.m. and then added she went to bed sometime between 12:10 a.m. and 12:30 a.m. that morning. So it could have been any time before 12:30, basically. Okay. Eventually, she advised Maddie came home and eventually Kaylee, but she was not certain about where Kaylee was when she went to bed. Pointless, because this was Friday night. So why are we talking about this? She then explained on Saturday morning at approximately 12:15. She then corrected the time to 11:44 a.m. The roommates went together to get coffee in the store to get more alcohol. See, this has to be like those messages that Xana was sending out, because I'm pretty sure they said that those started like around 11. They still had champagne from the previous weekend, which was, she explained, was the U of I parents' weekend. Yeah, where they apparently deep cleaned the house, you know. She explained the plans for that Saturday night included a blank Chi. I can't believe they spelled it like that. I mean, I've gotten it wrong before, but that's wild. Fraternity party on campus. Blank explained Kaylee was not going to this function because she was a senior, and typically seniors do not attend the fraternity functions on campus because they are old enough to go to the local clubs. Blank explained she was going to the party. Blank further explained at one point Maddie was at the function, but left the function to go to the club with Kaylee. That is something else that actually we did not know until this damn book. The freaking book told us that Maddie actually did go to the Sigma Chi party for like a little bit. And I'm pretty positive this goes on to say that Dylan actually did go to, which was sort of what was talked about also in the book. And I believe in the Moscow records, they even mention it a little bit. But that's another one of those details. Yeah, it's the anniversary. All that stuff's coming up. So that's like her. She's been on my mind a lot. She's been on my mind a lot. Yeah, we didn't know. We didn't know that there was like appearances made by them. I don't know why this is shaking so much. Yeah, oh, that's why. Move that. We didn't know that there was appearances made by them at the same party, because the way that the PCA has read up until we started getting more information, Bethany saw Xana and Ethan around like, what was it? Sometime between 8 and 9 p.m. And then lo and behold, all this time later, and everything about Xana and Ethan doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. There's no actual timeline for them whatsoever. And to this day, we don't know what time they got home. And it gets worse than this because we already knew from what Judge Hippler said that it was more than obvious that whenever the girls were apparently talking about going out to get more food, that Xana and Ethan were not home yet. But then she starts talking about how it's like after 3 o'clock and she still doesn't know if Xana and Ethan are home because the door was open to Xana's room. She thought that they weren't. But then the door is open whenever she's apparently like running for her life down to Bethany's room. But with the door open at that point, she can sure see that Xana's on the floor in her underwear. Like, none of it makes any sense. None of it is consistent, and that's the problem. Literally none of it. Okay. So Kaylee, at this point, according to the other stuff, is at the King Roadhouse with that LM girl. And then Maddie shows up and they start getting ready and LM goes with them to the corner club. But I want to know her timeline for whenever she split from them. Because I'm telling you, it's the same person that's at the house later watching Vampire Diaries with Dylan. If you go off the MPD reports. They were all together. They were all at the house together at 5 p.m. on Saturday. Blank stated Kaylee decided to go and take a nap, and Blank, Maddie, Xana, Blank, and she were on the couch watching a movie. Blank explained they all were together Saturday afternoon at the house, and they all decided to take naps, and each of the girls set their alarms for 8 p.m. We've heard that before too. Blank believes Ethan may have come over to the house at this time, but she was not certain if this was the time Ethan came over or if he showed up at a different time. So you don't know either way. Why was it even in here? Blank explained she had an assignment due in her Psychology 215 course. So they say this class, but when it comes to the marketing class, they don't give us the digits behind the marketing class for Maddie and Cole. Why redact some things and not redact the rest of them? That's really stupid. So she posted the assignment at approximately 10:12 p.m. She believes she then left the house at approximately 10:30 p.m. on a Saturday night. When Dylan left the house, Kaylee was still there with one of her friends. That would be LM. However, Dylan does not know the friend's name. She described the friend was female and was nice. That has to be LM. After leaving the house, she saw Maddie between their residence and the blank, and Maddie was holding a box of White Claws while she was walking towards their house. Is that the box that's in the living room? Is it the living room? It's not the one that has red stuff on it in Xana's room. I think that's what we see in the living room. Maybe. Or is there two of them in the living room? Maybe there was two. She talked to Maddie and then continued to the Sigma Chi party, the function. She believed Maddie was going back to their residence to get ready to go to the club with Kaylee. Sergeant Blaker asked Dylan to give more details about the route she took when she encountered Maddie, and she provided those details in the interview. It sounds like between the Whites and the residence is what this, or maybe it's the frat house. Walking in between there, like maybe on the field, maybe. 25. She explained. Oh, wait. Okay. She explained when she got to the Sigma Chi function, she went to meet up with Xana and Blank, and she called Xana on her cell phone to find out which apartment they were in, and she was told they were in apartment Blank. So not Ethan. Who? Bethany? Because Bethany was there too. Does it say what time Bethany left the house? I don't think it does. See, they set their alarms for 8 p.m. and it says in the first PCA that sometime between 8 and 9 is whenever Bethany saw Xana and Ethan at the party. Okay. I bet you this right here is Bethany. Others who were at the apartment Blank at this time were Ethan, Blank, Xana, Blank, Blank. Okay. According to some of the other things that we heard, I think it came out of Hunter's mouth. Hunter Chapin's mouth. Xana and Ethan were in his room, his apartment at the frat house, like right before they left. That's how it's been explained. Dylan explained she and Blank were going in and out of the fraternity lodge together for part of the night. I'm assuming it's she and Bethany, but it could be somebody else. We don't know. She explained there were not a lot of people at this function. So here's the thing about that. I know that there was stuff in the Amazon series. I believe it was the Amazon series that showed like snippets of video of what looked to be a party, but do we know for a fact if it was that party or if it was another party? Because if that was the real party, there was lots of people there. Like there was a lot of people. So I don't know if they just took like some random ass clip or if that was actually from that night. I don't know. She further explained after she met up with Blank and the two of them went into Blank apartment. No detail there. She was with Ethan and Xana during part of the night, and Dylan explained Ethan had been trying to get in contact with his sister because she had been upset about something and he was worried about her, but she didn't know what the issue was. She remembered Blank told her brother she had not been answering her cell phone because she had been asleep. So what we know about this was what we just mentioned. The dance where Ethan was Maisie's date. Hunter also went with someone else. I believe it was Maisie's roommate or just another sorority sister. They wanted her to go to the party. She didn't want to go to the party. They dropped her off at her sorority house. There's a mention in the book how the boys went inside, got into the fridge, and grabbed some sandwiches from the sorority house fridge before they took off to go to the frat party. And we do know that Maisie made a lot of comments about him trying to get her to go out, trying to get her to come out to the party. Now, her being upset about something is never anything that was mentioned before. At all. But I find it really interesting that the PCA tells us, again, that Bethany sees Xana and Ethan between 8 and 9 p.m. at this party, but they don't mention a damn word about Dylan seeing them there, being there either. That's not ever talked about. Like, why? Why? I'd also really like to know what Maisie was upset about. I mean, probably neither here nor there, but for some reason that wasn't mentioned this whole time. She described Ethan as being very protective of his sister as well as protective of all of the roommates. The group of them then went to visit Blank, who she had previously met through Xana, and Blank was also there, including she, Blank, and Blank, 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 and Blank were also there, as well as Blank, Blank, and Blank. Okay, so bunches of people. Somewhere else. The group of them went to visit Blank, which means they left and went to go meet somebody somewhere else. When asked how much alcohol she had consumed, she explained she had been playing Rage Cage, which she described as a drinking game. And when she awakened from her nap, she consumed 3 White Claws with an alcoholic content of 5%, which is literally freaking nothing. If you've been drinking since 4:30 on Friday, that little bitty White Claw ain't gonna freaking touch you. Let's see what Rage Cage is. I don't know that life. Oh, so it's basically like ping pong. I mean, beer pong. Let me find a little video. Wow, look how this is so cheesy. Holy shit.
We'll see you now.
So this is old, bro. This is back from 2015. This is funny. Look how old this is. We're going to watch it, though. It has 118,000 views. This is how you play Rage Cage, or also called Slap Cup.
The doctor will see you now.
So you're looking for a great drinking game? Well, I got just the thing for you. Today's prescription is called Rage Cage. And the learning level for this game is easy. And this game is perfect for 4 or more players. And what you're going to need to play this game are 2 ping pong balls, 10 or more party cups,
His face,
and a table. The object of the game is to screw over your opponents by slapping their cup away from them.
Okay, that's interesting.
First, set up the table by placing 10
This
or more
isn't
party
how
cups in the center
the table
and
was
pouring
set
an
up in
ounce
the
of
house.
any beverage of your choice. Pour the most into the center cup. This cup is reserved for the end of the game, serving as a punishment for the last player to get their cup slapped.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, it looks fun. But the table was not set up for that. The table was set up like for like beer pong with the triangle set up.
2 players on opposite ends of the table will take control of the ball and start on the count of 3. If a player gets their ball in on the first try, they can pass the cup off to any player of their choice, except for the player still attempting to bounce their ball. If they bounce the ball in 2 attempts or more, then the player simply slides the cup to the right. If you make the ball in while the player immediately to your right is still attempting to bounce their ball in, slap the cup. Now the player...
Okay, well, we get it. We get it. Yeah, that was 2015. It's a decade old. Watching something that freaking old on YouTube is wild. I'm glad we looked, though, because I wouldn't have thought that it was like a circle thing. Like, I've played beer pong before. Like, probably back in high school, if you want to be so for real. But that's like the last time I ever played beer pong. So I didn't think it was much different, which I guess it is. But again, that's not what the table was set up for. And it still bothers me that those cups on the end like that are like perfectly still in a triangle, even though on the other side they're dumped over. Like, how's that possible? That was like one of those flimsy ass folding tables. The white ones you can get for like $50 at Walmart. So I don't see how those were still standing up, but you know, okay. She denied there was any substance use. Ooh, YouTube almost got me. Substance use, and stated Xana and Ethan used blank, which we've already heard about that. Most people will think that this is Adderall. Probably the only time I can get away with saying that whole word in this whole live. She advised neither Maddie or Kaylee did anything. She explained she nor blank never touched that stuff. Now I will go back. I will go back to Analysis of a Crime with CD, is I think the channel's name. He was told some information, I believe, before December. Was it December 9th was the date he used? It was like some information that he had gotten back at the end of November from people that had been talking to like Dylan and Bethany and people that were like listening to all the inside stuff. And she had basically been using the word like hallucinating from like day one. So a lot of people just instantly assumed that she was tripping on something. And that this statement is boo-boo. Who knows? She described the alcohol used at blank and blank residence, which included blank consuming a whole Borg, in which she also consumed some of the Borg. So who's this other person? Based on a Google search I conducted relative to writing this report, a Borg is an alcoholic beverage, which requires taking an empty gallon container and filling it halfway with water, adding vodka and enough mix-in stuff to make it the taste of vodka disappear. The cocktail is often referred to as a Borg, but the nickname doubles as an acronym that stands for the drink's full name, Blackout Rage Gallon. See, Hitler is the one in a footnote in one of his order things that I'm pretty sure it was Hitler. In his footnote, it mentions like all of the alcohol that Dylan drank. And in it, it says that she drank an entire one like herself. But this sounds like someone else created it and they both sort of like drank off of it, which is definitely a big difference. Which means that she was less intoxicated than we originally thought. So that doesn't really, look very, either way, honestly. Okay, she described blank as being extremely intoxicated. So what does this say? Roommate? Bethany roommate? Like, why do we not have more information on this? Because we don't really have any clue about anything so far that Bethany was really doing. There's not too much conversations on that literally at all. So we don't really know yet. Hopefully there's something in this thing where there's more details on that. Because they can only play, oh, I was so drunk, I didn't know what was going on, for these idiot guilters that still don't read black and white for so long. But to sit here and now be like, oh, so you didn't even drink that whole gallon thing? You were just taking some sips or whatever off of it because you were sharing it with somebody? Oh, well, that knocks your drunkenness down a lot. Like a lot. So, didn't really work out in her favor, honestly. And that she had continued to consume alcohol, and because of blank's intoxicated condition, blank advised she invited blank to come back to her residence with her to watch movies, and because of blank's intoxicated condition, she called a sobro, which she described as involving these people work for the state police department. Described is a sober freshman fraternity member who is a designated driver for fraternity and sorority members who are consuming alcohol to drive them to their homes safely. So we really are so are we assuming here that Bethany was the one that was intoxicated off of her ass so bad that Dylan called for a driver because Bethany was too intoxicated? And so because she basically needed help getting Bethany back because Bethany was so intoxicated, the third person tagged along too? Is that what this is? That's what it sort of sounds like. She advised it was only she and blank that went back to the residence using the Sobro. She did not believe anyone else was home. Okay, so the other person didn't go? She just said she invited somebody else to go back with them, but then said her and the other person, which maybe this isn't Bethany. Is this too short to be Bethany? These are all adults. These are all people over the age of 18, out doing adult things, being nasty, paying bills, doing things they're not supposed to be doing, living their life, not answering to nobody but their damn selves. Why can we not read these names? This kind of shit they do on purpose. There's no reason for this. This is absolutely ignorant. I mean, yeah, they could at least give us initials. But this is so freaking ignorant. Like, you can't even freaking keep this in line even a little bit because you don't know what freaking black box means who. And this is confusing as shit. Did somebody go back with you or not? You just said you invited somebody to go back with you to watch movies with you. Now it says that you and the other person were the only people to go back, but then there was still somebody else there watching movies. Not even really movies. There was still somebody else there watching Vampire Diaries. So did she show up later? Anyway, by the time they get back using this Sobro, she didn't believe anyone else was home. When the two of them got home, which she believed was sometime between 1:15 and 1:30 on November 13th, she was intoxicated, and because of that, she does not remember what time it actually was, but she believed it was between the two times mentioned. Well, the camera would tell that. She further advised she made popcorn in the kitchen, and she and blank watched Vampire Diaries. See, this one's long enough to where it looks like it would be Bethany. So who's the shorter name up here? I hate this so much. Okay. Approximately 20 minutes later, blank returned home. I don't understand. So did she end up not going home with Bethany? She ended up taking somebody else home with her? So who's this person coming home? Had to be Bethany if they're saying home. See how this makes it so freaking confusing? This whole thing right here, we don't know who the frick these people are even being talked about. Whatever. The three of them laid down and continued to watch Vampire Diaries. She believes blank may have walked home, but then she advised she does not know what time blank and blank went to bed. Okay. To say that you don't know what time two other people went to bed, but you also think that somebody left the house and walked home. Who the frick else are you talking about? That's possible. So ignorant. I hate the way that they do this. I hate it. I hate this so much. She had already gone to bed and does not know when blank may have left or when blank went to bed. So now it's changed. Again. Who is blank and blank going to bed? Two people. At approximately 2 or 2:30, she awakened because Maddie and Kaylee arrived home from the grub truck food, and they had mac and cheese, which blank explained they normally got. Well, that was 1:56, not between 2 and 2:30. That was 1:56. All four of them were together, which included blank, Maddie, and Kaylee. Blank advised they were taking selfie videos. All the girls talked about getting grub truck food. She did not believe Xana and Ethan were home because their bedroom door was open and she did not see them. And she discussed whether she may have been mistaken about this fact. And then she said she was certain she saw their door was open and they were not home. But again, the door was open whenever you ran down to Bethany's room. And even though the lights were apparently off, you're detailing how with the string lights that were still on, and some Scentsy light thing, and a couple of other little string lights that were on throughout the area, that you could see her laying on the floor in her underwear. Door open. Door open in both instances. That's why a lot of people are like, damn, is it possible that this was like a 2-time event and Xana and Ethan had gotten home way before they did and something crazy happened and just nobody noticed? I can see why people think that. I don't know. I don't think so. But possibly to make it easier for whatever the hell's going on here. Or maybe they went in and hit the wrong target and then had to go back in after realizing something. I don't know. But for there to still be nothing when it comes to Xana and Ethan, like you're sitting there trying to tell me that you have cameras that show you the damn DoorDash driver pulling into the parking lot of King Road and this car passing by behind them or even pulling in behind them with the way the freaking document for Moscow is written. But you don't know what time Xana and Ethan walked in that damn door? Regardless of which door, you still cannot tell us what time they got home? I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Okay. She then went to bed, which she advised was after texting Eric, the Uber driver. Now, this is where some of it gets a little bit confusing because she is now in Boise, which is different timing than Moscow. So whenever she's looking at 3:10 a.m. when she contacted the driver, it's really 2:10, like it says in this document right here. 2:10, Moscow time. As she's reading things, she's going to be giving it to them as it's showing on her phone for her phone auto-correcting to the right time zone once she got there. But it's mentioned in that. So just because we see an hour being off by 1 doesn't mean anything because of the time zone issue and the way that the phone will automatically change the time. That's why this portion right here is so important. The stuff that we have like from the actual download of the phone stuff. Okay. Blank looked at her phone to determine what time she had texted Blank, the Uber driver, and said her phone said 3:10. But after further discussion, she admitted Blank admitted she was some confused. She admitted she was some confused. These people are state employees. It drives me insane. About whether she was using Moscow time or Boise time. And Blank explained her timeline may be off by an hour because of this issue. Specifically during this interview, referencing Boise time instead of providing the time it would have been in Moscow when these events were occurring on November the 13th. She explained she uses Snapchat as well as her cell phone to communicate with her friends. She advised if there is a... Listen to this shit. She advised if there is a lack of texted communications in her cell phone, it's because she transitioned to using the Snapchat app for her method of communication. Let that sink in. She advised her login information with Snapchat is blank and her password is either blank or blank. She denied knowing her roommates' passwords to their cell phones. I found that interesting. And I think back to Kaylee's deleted LinkedIn. And then we jump forward almost 3 years and we hear Olivia tell Brian Anton in an interview that she messaged both Dylan and Bethany that morning to find out what was going on. And neither one of them responded. Neither one of them have spoken to them a single time. Well, at least Olivia. We know that Dylan and Steve had a couple seconds worth of a conversation, which just still makes me so freaking angry because he's known that she's been a damn liar since the beginning, since the memorial. And now that all the documents are coming out proving that he knew this already, because nothing in this is matching to, oh, I don't know. And it matches to, yeah, you know everything. I love how he's suddenly so quiet after defending her for so long while knowing that she was lying. That's what's blown my mind so much is that we know that he's known since the memorial that she was lying. Jack Decor heard her talking about the situation as he was walking around trying to find out what was going on. Told the Goncalveses this. So Steve was expecting answers. He was expecting Dylan to say, I saw a guy dressed in black with the mask on. I saw him walk out the door, or whatever the frick she was supposed to say, okay? He was expecting a story. Instead, Bethany ran away, wouldn't look at him, wouldn't talk to him, left the room, and Dylan lied to his face. He's known for almost 3 years now. And then for Olivia to come out and be like, they never wrote me back. I'm sorry? What? How is that okay? How is that normal, okay behavior? It's disgusting. While they were together, they talked about ordering grub truck, and she then texted blank the Uber driver at approximately 3:10, which would be 2:10. She explained she texted to him, "Are you driving by chance?" At approximately 3:10, which would be 2:10. He texted her back. She then went to bed. Did he say no? See, that's one thing we don't have. We don't have whatever was truthfully said. Oh, he was driving. Okay. So she got the confirmation 3 minutes later and then just ignored him. Then that's what happened here. It was not even a whole 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes later. He's like, "Yeah, I'm driving." And she never says another word. Why? Why wouldn't you have been like, "Okay, never mind. Thank you, though." Why would you have just left it like that? She does not believe Blake ever came to their house because she never responded to his text about the fact that he was still driving. See, I really wonder if he did. I wonder if he showed up thinking that he was going to be picking them up for something. But I guess we'll never know, until the actual full video comes out, not that bullshit the Idaho Statesman put out. She advised Eric, the Uber driver, is in his 30s, is married, and has one child. She advised all of the girls knew him and liked them. Wasn't his wife pregnant at the time? What we were told is that she was pregnant at the time that this was going on. So was she did she just freshly have the baby? Or was she pregnant with a second child? I don't remember. I honestly just don't remember that portion of it, but I could have sworn we were told she was married and worked for the admin department in Moscow PD. There's that. Okay. 44. Blank advised, which is Dylan. She is not certain if she stayed awake to watch more Vampire Diaries episodes or if she went to sleep. She was not certain if she locked her bedroom door. So you're not certain whether you stayed in the living room to watch Vampire Diaries or if you went to your room to go to bed. You're not certain of that? She was not certain if she locked her bedroom door, and she was not certain if she locked the sliding door because she was the one who usually did, but she also volunteered in her statement that she believed Moscow was a safe place, so the sliding door was not always locked. It didn't lock. We've been told that for a long time now. It didn't lock. You did a thing, and anybody could open it. That's come out of more than one person's mouth. So why are we lying? Why are we lying? Why are we lying? She does not remember if anyone locked the sliding glass door before she went to bed. She was the first to go to bed ahead of the other roommates. But you don't know whether you stayed in the living room to watch more Vampire Diaries or went to bed? You also just said that you don't know what time Bethany and the other girl went to bed, and you didn't mention it was because you were already in your room. And also, how much asleep were you when you were adding a contact to your phone at 3:51 in the morning? 8 minutes before the DoorDash got dropped off. Now, I guess it's possible that you could have dozed in and out sometime between 2:30 and 3:51, but how much dozing in and out are you doing if you're doing something that involves you adding a contact to your phone at 3:51 in the morning? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. She explained that she previously has had a lot of dreams where she had been kidnapped in her dreams. And she further explained these types of dreams started in high school, and she knew they were dreams, and she would let those things happen in her dreams because she realized they were dreams. Okay, that's a big statement. What the frick did she just say? So is she trying to say that in her dream she just lets the kidnapping happen and she doesn't fight off the kidnapper? Is that what she's trying to say she allows to happen? She advised she does not suffer from anxiety and denied prior life trauma other than divorced parents. Girl, what do you mean? She would let those things happen in her dreams because she realized they were dreams. Are you sitting there just watching yourself being kidnapped and tortured and all the things that happens whenever people are kidnapped without fighting back? That's just an odd ass statement. We also already knew this, that she did this kind of thing. Had these deep nightmare type dreams where things would happen to her. This is something that we've known for a minute now. She explained she was awakened to a noise sometime between 4 a.m. and 4:20 a.m. This is where we start getting, I think, into the timeline a little bit more. A little bit. She was asked to explain the amount of alcohol she had consumed before going to bed. Now, remember, they're going to be asking these questions over and over again, most likely in different ways, at different times, mixing it up a little bit to see if she's going to change her story. That's why it's like this. That's why it sounds like this. It's still a little bit bouncy, but not as bouncy as this damn book. At least you can sort of still follow it a little bit until they get too redacted. She again explained while she was playing Rage Cage, which included the White Claws, part of Blank's Borg, and maybe 2 or 3 more drinks, White Claws, at Blank's house. She denied drinking after she left Blank's house, meaning she got home and didn't drink anymore. So if you're home by 1:15, you're not that intoxicated by 4 o'clock in the morning. Especially if you made something to eat after you got home. I know popcorn is just popcorn, but you're still putting something in your stomach. You maybe even took a couple of bites of the freaking macaroni because that's what girls do. They share their freaking food with everybody. But she didn't drink anymore whenever she got home. Do you know how much 3.5 hours can do? 3 hours can do to your sobriety? Being at home? A lot. Especially not drinking the whole Borg, but just consuming some of it. This girl was not as intoxicated as everybody's been trying to play that she was. Amazing. At 4:22 a.m., she confirmed this information by looking at the texted communication on a cell phone. She texted Kaylee asking her, "What's going on?" Well, let's take a look. It started before that. 4:19 is where Bethany calls Dylan. Because remember, we were told Dylan called Bethany freaking out. They haven't given us the time, I don't think. Unless it's in one of the other documents. If Dylan contacted Bethany first or if there's a text message or anything like that, I'll have to go back in and check. But they have the initial contact when this shit's going down, apparently. Bethany calling Dylan. And remember, Bethany was woken up by what sounded like a firecracker and some shiny-ass bright light underneath her door. And where is her door? Where is her room? On the bottom floor where they said nothing happened. Let's remember that part too. But this has 4:19 as the stuff being started, and then Dylan calls Xana first. You know, the one she saw like on the floor a few minutes later. She calls Xana at 4:20. Dylan calls Kaylee at 4:20. So I don't know what she's looking at that says 4:22. Because that's off by 2 minutes. And it matters because this is supposed to be information from a forensic download of the phones. I mean, it's even got the freaking seconds on it. 4:22 would be down here where Bethany's calling, we're assuming Maddie, because you know we've got multiple MMs now in this case. Bethany also calls Ethan. Dylan then starts texting Bethany about how nobody is answering. And then also text about what's going on. So no mention of the previous phone call. It's leaving out a pretty important detail. She advised her phone said 5:22 a.m., which she advised would have been 4:22 a.m. Moscow time. Exactly. It's not saying that the timeline is different. It's just saying she's in a different time zone as her phone is showing her what's going on. She advised around 4 or 4:20 a.m. she heard Kaylee singing and playing music. See, you can't say at 4:20 a.m. when the cops want us to believe that at 1 minute after that, the suspect's vehicle is jetting up out of the place. But we do know from a couple of months ago, basically like all this information started coming out at the beginning of this year. January's closed session and the public session, like the 2 days we had in January, really started popping off the information. That's where it really started coming from. So we heard this. We heard that Kaylee was dancing with the dog, that there was not only music, but singing, like some karaoke shit was going on. We heard that. She heard who she believed Kaylee walking up the stairs, and then Dylan advised she heard Kaylee say someone's here, and she sounded frantic. Dylan described Kaylee's tone as somewhere between talking and yelling it. She believed it was Kaylee who was walking up the stairs with Murphy. The whole Murphy thing is honestly a neither here nor there situation when it comes to who this could be, because now we know that Maddie and Bethany take him outside to go to the bathroom. We also know at some point, whenever Dylan got home, she let Murphy out to go to the bathroom, and then he came back inside. And the way that it sounds, it's like they just let him run around instead of having him on a leash or anything like that. Like he's allowed to run and then they just expect him to come back. I don't have enough faith in my animals for that. So they are on leashes until they get into the fenced area. Most of the time they just stay on the leashes. I'm not risking any of that. But that's how it sounds like, which we didn't know anything about Maddie and Bethany being the people that brought Murphy outside, because Olivia Goncalves in her camel-colored turtleneck thing said that they saw the girls go out to take Murphy to go to the bathroom. Well, it wasn't the girls. It was one of the girls and Bethany, not Kaylee and Maddie. Kaylee was doing something else while Maddie and Bethany were taking her dog outside. And then we're being told that around 2:30, Bethany is claiming that Maddie came downstairs and asked her, do you know where Murphy is? Because they couldn't find him. So then whenever we go to this conversation right here, like, oh, they don't have it right here. Okay, right here. 2:53, MM calls BF. Now, again, we know that DoorDash driver's initials make this a little bit confusing now because we really don't know what the frick is happening, okay? But until we have further proof of anything else, this is still Maddie. This would be a call that happened while both Maddie and Kaylee's phones were frantically calling Jack D. And now we know for certain this is because Murphy was missing. Now, I know that people are saying that he was missing from like the Humane Society and stuff like that. There's documentation and things that fall in line with that stuff, that to me just proves a poor communication problem. I'll do a video on that by itself here eventually. But it looks like in this instance, Bethany and Maddie took the dog outside. I guess they stayed outside for a while, but it was cold. So Bethany went back in and I guess left Maddie outside by herself. Maddie comes back inside at some point and around 2:30 goes downstairs and asks Bethany to her face if she's seen the dog. She's told no. And then we know that there's back-to-back calls to Jack. In between that, we have this. So we can only assume that it's about the dog. My question is, when did you freaking find him for you to now believe that he's in the house? Because they haven't told us that yet. They haven't told us when Murphy was found. You've got all these calls going on back and forth until like 3 o'clock in the morning, which is already like freaking a lot of people out because of the timeline of things and the Banfield footage and all the crazy shit. Okay. But you don't tell us when they found him, if they found him. And then Dylan says something real crazy. Dylan says something real crazy about how it sounds like whenever he was barking, it sounded like he was leaving the house. To me, that means that his barking sounded like it was getting further and further and further away from you. Now, we also know that they tested his barking on the camera and tested it to have been outside. And we also know that he went on barking for an additional 30 minutes after the suspect vehicle left, which makes Molly even more suspicious because of now that her having a dog that she was walking around story. The timestamps and the stuff for Murphy would probably be like important for this part. Because she's claiming she heard Kaylee playing with Murphy, dancing with Murphy, and now saying it had to have been Kaylee going up and down the stairs because Murphy was there. But how do you know that? Like, how do you know the dog was with her? And how do you know for sure that this was her? Because she mentions the Doc Martens in the shoes, but like we did in the live, Kaylee wasn't wearing Doc Martens. She was wearing white tennis shoes. Maddie was the one wearing the boot-like shoes, the hiking boot type shoes. And those were found on the floor of her bedroom in the crime scene photos, right next to her jeans. So why would you get out of white tennis shoes to put on some freaking boots if you're getting ready to go to bed? But also, if you look at now I know that Xana was found in her underwear, like a long sleeve sweater. But if you look in the photo at the whites where she's wearing all black, she's wearing boots like that. The same kind that Maddie was wearing. But then she's found with different clothes. That's why this portion of this is like, I don't know where you were trying to go with this because it doesn't add up with anything that we know is real. Okay. She says she heard who she believed to be Kaylee running down the stairs. She advised Murphy was barking at the time. And blank advised she has been all these things. Why can we not read this sentence about Dylan? What is so important that we can't read this? She does not believe Murphy is normally a barker. She further stated she believed it was Kaylee who was running down the stairs after she heard her say someone is here. She further explained she does not know if she actually heard this or whether she was drunk and not actually hear any of this, after admitting that you weren't as drunk as you originally tried to play it off and you didn't drink anymore after you got home. Highly unlikely, honey. She heard the footsteps of who she believed to be Kaylee. She explained all the girls were Doc Martens, and that is the sound she believed she was hearing Kaylee coming down the stairs wearing her Doc Martens because of the sound of the footsteps coming down the stairs. So again, she wasn't wearing Doc Martens, she was wearing white tennis shoes. And if all of the girls wear those same boots, then what makes you think that it was Kaylee? If Kaylee doesn't take the dog to go to the bathroom because Maddie and Bethany do it, then why does the dog being around make you automatically think that it's Kaylee? Okay. There's no proof of any of this. Blank called blank at 4:19 a.m. Then Xana at 4:20. So is that what they put in here? Bethany called Dylan, and then Dylan called Xana. Yep. And then blank again at 4:20. Dylan advised Bethany told her about seeing fireworks. She texted Dylan texted Bethany a last time at 4:27 a.m. before she went to blank's room. I think that is the time. Bethany to Dylan, and then 4:27:11. Dylan has an outgoing call. Dylan outgoing. See, okay, which one is it? Did she start making all these other phone calls before or after she gets down there? It only takes a second. But at some point in this right here, this 4:27, 4:28 time frame, Dylan is calling Xana after seeing her on the ground. She even says that she checks her snap map to see where Ethan and Xana are, can see that they're home. So my huge question has always been, are you not hearing the phones going off? Because if you're hearing every single freaking phone go off and your ass is not getting an answer and you're not going to go check on why, is it because you already know why? Because why else would you not walk out of that room? And everything else she says is bullshit too. Because you can't say that you didn't perceive any sort of fear, but then say that you were too scared to walk down the hallway to Xana's room. There's so many things in here that are so inconsistent. It's disgusting. So disgusting. Okay. Dylan then explained when she opened her door and she said she did not see anyone. The second time when she opened her door, she heard who she believed to be Kaylee crying, and blank believed Kaylee was in the second floor bathroom. Why? Is it because of how it sounded? Because it could have been Xana. We don't know. This is just her assuming what she's hearing. Just like she says she heard the male voice and she didn't think it was Ethan. Well, if you just moved in August, September, October, November, it's been like 3 months. How do you know for sure if it's not Ethan? How do you know that? It could be. It could have been. There could have been a whole other situation going on between Ethan and Xana in that bathroom where he was like, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Maybe she felt nauseous. Maybe she was throwing up from overdoing stuff. Maybe she had a little bit too much and wasn't feeling good. Maybe he said that to her because he was trying to help her. We don't know. We have no freaking clue about literally any of this. And we have to assume that that's one of the situations that could have happened because of what was found on her desk. With her ID next to it, with the IDs next to it, with the rolled up thing next to it, and because of everything else that we've already seen. We have to possibly. Just because Dylan heard it doesn't mean it had anything to do with this situation. It could literally have been something else. We don't know. Dylan believed the unidentified male was in the bathroom and with the person who was crying. She believes it was Kaylee who was the one crying. Dylan stated, well, it says stated that now she has gathered additional information. She now believes it was probably Xana who was crying. What does that mean? this bothered me when I saw this part, because this is a couple days after, and we know that the police put everyone up in a hotel. Like, it was the same hotel that the Chapin stayed at. Everyone who was there whenever 911 was called, everyone that showed up, it was in that huddle. Lots of people were put up in a hotel. Like, basically the entire freaking thing was like held for the people. There was a lot of conversations being had, a lot of stuff. So for her to say that she gathered more information, that's definitely not you speaking from your own memory. That's you gathering information from who? From who? From where? Who'd you talk to? Who gave you this so-say information that you've now gathered? Because you're only supposed to be speaking from experience. See why you can't trust eyewitness anything? At the moment of hearing the crying, she stated she believed it was Kaylee. She advised she knows the male's voice was not Ethan's voice. Well, you really don't know that. You really don't know that, if you want to be so serious. She described the last episode of Vampire Diaries, and she remembered it was two males rescuing a female. That's every single episode, bro. That's literally the two brothers and Elena in every single episode. Let's be so serious. She explained it was not violent. I'm sorry? People getting their heads twisted off and blood going all over the place is pretty violent. Fantastical or not. Okay. She advised the male figure in the last episode was wearing all black. It was Damon? It was Damon. Ariel's in New Orleans right now. Go and visit the cemetery in the show. Like tonight, as we're speaking. She's probably walking around, taking pictures. Convenient, isn't it? But Blank explained that this was normal for the series. It was. Every episode. She is not certain whether she heard Murphy barking during the first time she opened her door, but she advised it was possible he was barking. But Murphy, this is where it's weird, bro. But Murphy was moving away from the house. Whenever Brian Inton read this, I was like, okay, moving away, like physically moving away because Kaylee's moving away and probably taking the freaking dog with her, or the barking was getting farther and farther away from the house. Hence why the police state it was coming from the outside. Weird way to put it. She described Murphy was a puppy and Dylan had just met him in August. She could not describe Murphy as being skittish. She advised she opened and closed her door a total of 3 times. And the 4th time is when she left her bedroom to go downstairs to Bethany's bedroom. Dylan advised she continued to call and text her roommates, but received no answers. She provided the times she called and texted her roommates, and the time span she advised would have been between 4:20 to 4:27 a.m. She advised she never thought about an intruder, and in her mind, she stated she was not processing that what was occurring was threatening. Lies. Because you told MPD you went to grab your taser. And what do the text messages say? Are they on here or do I need to open up another page? Okay. I'm freaking out right now. I'm not kidding. I'm so freaked out. Run. Get down here. Freaking out that her phone is going to die. But this wasn't a threat to you? I'm sorry. Was I born yesterday? She advised she believed the male was directing his conversation of who she believed was Kaylee. She advised she did not believe the male was directing that statement at her. So the statement about how they put it this time, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Dylan is stating that at the time, even though after gathering more information, she now believes that person to have actually been Xana. Let's keep that part in mind. She's now stating that now she believes full-heartedly that the conversation being had, that portion of a sentence, was being directed at Kaylee, not her. But then, again, this would be directed at Xana, according to her new gathered information, right? In discussing why the offender did not harm her, it was discussed that it was possible the male knew her and wanted to protect her. And she said she understood that was possible, but denied knowing who the suspect was. Now, I take this after reading it myself that they probably asked her this question. What do you think was the reason why you were spared? Why do you think that even after, this person heard you calling your roommates' names out loud, yelling into the house, why do you think he spared you? To protect you? Did he know you? It's odd. Dylan further explained she Snapchatted Ethan but received no answer from Ethan. Dylan thought Ethan was still either at Sigma Chi or was home. She was not certain. We also need to remember that Ethan had an apartment that we didn't really know all the way about. That was paid for by his parents because he wasn't allowed to live at the frat house until his grades got up. But yet apparently got him up because he was supposed to be moving back into the frat house in less than a month, according to what one of his frat brothers said at one of the memorials. The third time Dylan opened her door, she said her vision was blurry or fuzzy, but she advised she saw a figure of someone that was dressed in all black and they were masked, and he was holding an item of what she initially perceived was a vacuum. But she said that did not make sense to her. She described the suspect as not being muscular, but being skinny and toned like a basketball player. She further described him as being taller than her 5'10" frame by at least 3 inches. So he would have had to have been 6 foot in height. She advised he had to have heard her call Kaylee and Xana, and he thought he would have had to have heard her calling for them. And she was confused as to why he did not come to her room. She described the item the suspect was holding, which she advised was like a cylinder, but she remembered a cop talking about a bow, so she was trying to ascertain if what she saw was in fact shaped like a bow. What cop was talking about a bow? I don't know anything about that. Dylan further stated she thought that maybe it was a firefighter because of what Bethany told her about seeing a firecracker. Can somebody make that make sense? What about a firecracker makes you instantly think a firefighter? I don't understand that. She advised he would have been approximately 3 feet away from her, and she believed she saw him walking out the back sliding glass door. That doesn't logistically work at all. He had looked at her before walking out of the back door. She was not certain if he could see her whole body or just her head. So not only is she calling out for Xana, or it says had to have heard her call Kaylee and Xana, but she's calling Ethan too. So I'm assuming that she's yelling out their names. I'm assuming that because one of the rumors in the very beginning was that she did yell up the stairs to shut the F up. Like that was rumor number 1. Rumor number 1. That one seems to be accurate because of what she's claiming. She's claiming that she heard stuff going on upstairs, music, singing. If you were trying to go to sleep, yeah, you would be yelling it, shut the F up. I'm trying to go to bed. So that makes sense to me. So I don't know why we're trying to pretend like it didn't happen whenever it sounds logical. It sounds more logical than the rest of this crap. So then you have to think about that. Okay, so this person heard her calling out these names, heard her saying all these things, saw and heard her. Doors are not silent. You can hear every time the damn thing opens and closes. Unless the music was still on. When did the music turn off? No one's answering that question. She apparently heard music and singing. When did the music stop? Was this crap going on with the music still playing? And you're like yelling and screaming and running down to Bethany's room with music still playing? Like, is that the situation? And if it is the situation, who turned it off? And who let Murphy back in the house? So you're making all this noise with the door opening, closing, calling out names, blah, 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 blah. And he looked at you? And it's also interesting that she doesn't even mention her vision getting blurry or fuzzy until like the third time she opens her door. So it just magically got like that? Because remember, she wasn't drinking anymore. The drinking had stopped hours before. Couldn't have been the intoxication making her all fuzzy because she hadn't drank in like 3 hours at this point. That doesn't work. Beer goggles in this situation do not work. Literally at all. At 4:22 a.m., then blank corrected her time and stated 4:23 a.m. She advised she texted Bethany and they conversed about someone wearing all black. And Dylan said something to the effect of, WTF, why is Xana wearing all black? That part doesn't make sense to me. Because that's not really the question. It's not being asked like why. It's not being asked like why is she wearing all black? Because she was wearing all black. I mentioned that in the other review that we did. In the photo of them at the Whites, she's wearing all black. She wasn't found in that outfit. Again, long sleeve a gray long sleeve sweater and just her undies. So it wasn't WTF, why is she wearing all black? It's a statement. Bethany making a statement to Dylan about Xana wearing all black. So for all we know, the all black outfit that she had on at the Whites, she wore all the way until she got home and then changed into a gray sweater and just kept her undies on. That's how it sounds. That's how it sounds. The kitty cat's over there. I'm waiting, because if she jumps up here, she's going to knock all kind of stuff over. She's sleeping. Okay. Dylan explained she was not certain if she had been dreaming this or if it was real, which I don't understand that, because you've got the text messages that you're looking at your phone that shows this conversation happened. So what do you mean? Unless she's talking about like seeing the person, she doesn't know whether that was real or not, which is why they keep going back to like, oh, probably Damon was wearing all black in Vampire Diaries. And then we also know Xana was wearing all black. So they're trying to say that like her mind was like putting things together, but then also claiming at the same time in the report that she stopped drinking 3 hours before this. It doesn't work. There's got to be either another substance there or you're lying and you continue to do something else that was going to get you up to that point after you got home. And your little 5% White Claws ain't going to do it. No. No. Dylan explained she saw the suspect holding something she believed to be cylinder-shaped and also shaped like a triangle at the bottom of the cylinder shape. She advised the suspect was approximately 3 feet away from her, and he looked at her but was walking out of the sliding door when she saw him. She said she saw his eyebrows. That's a very specific thing to say. So I really feel like this was a question. Did you see his eyebrows? Yeah. Probably what happened here. Let me see if I can find the email. Somebody emailed me a picture of a weapon. That they believe might be this one. Boise Bella sent me this. Now, a long time ago, I wondered if a pew-pew could be involved, even though they're trying to tell us that there was stabbing, because this all happened within a certain couple-minute time frame. And now we know for sure that no one was really asleep in that house. I give Bethany maybe a little bit of leeway still with maybe being asleep, maybe a little bit. But to know now that she not only heard shit going on above her head, but then like was woken up to a firecracker and bright lights, then you're just as bad as Dylan. F you both, okay? Neither one of you did a damn thing. And both of y'all know something was crazy going on, so I don't really care. You have no more sympathy for me. I don't understand how it gets to the point to where all of these people can be subdued within such a short amount of time by one person with a manual weapon, unless there would be something like this to intimidate you into not running out of the house, to take care of it to where you're too scared to move because what's it going to be? A bullet or a blade? Do you really have a choice? How are you going to act? Even then, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. With all of those manual wounds? No. Not at all. But that weapon, possibly. It's a very interesting shape, especially if it's being held the way that it's being described in the MPD reports, because the Moscow reports state that this was being held towards like the belt line area. That's the way that it's being described by her. Container for holding bows, and it gives me a hair tie box. Jesus Christ. I'm trying to see if I can find the thing that I'm looking for. Yeah. Hold on. Trying to find the right one. Okay, yeah, sort of like this, I guess. Sort of like this. But then maybe like there would have been a bow that would be a triangle shape. Like maybe there's a way to connect it to like the bottom to where it's sort of like hanging there attached. That's one of the things that I thought maybe because of her mentioning a bow. But again, I don't know like where the bow thing came from. Actually. Hold on, I gotta read. Oh, there it goes. So I don't know. It could have been either way. Very strange. Very strange that a bow is being mentioned. I don't know if anybody else knows anything about a cop mentioning a bow. Unless it's in one of the other reports. I don't know why would you even mention that? Like that's interesting that they'd even mention that. Okay. Okay. At approximately 4:23 a.m., she texted Bethany to tell her she saw a masked suspect in their house. She responded at approximately 4:25 a.m., telling her to come to her, Bethany's bedroom, and that it's better than being alone. Dylan then left her bedroom after opening her door the fourth time and ran to Bethany's bedroom downstairs. Dylan advised when she left her bedroom, she looked down the hallway to Xana's bedroom and could see Xana lying on her back in her underwear, but she thought at the time Xana was passed out on the floor. Dylan stated she never went to Xana's bedroom and she could only see Xana from the hallway as she was running to get to Bethany's bedroom. This is where we get the first contradiction. She advised, well, not really the first one, but you're going to understand. She advised she was too scared to go into Xana's room. But you didn't perceive a threat? You were too scared, but didn't perceive a threat? Girl. And she knew blank was awake and she knew to go there because she was scared, but she didn't perceive a threat. Miss, I call everybody and they boyfriends over because I hear a pan falling in the kitchen, but you hear screaming and scuffling and people crying and you don't do a damn thing. How am I the bad guy for not feeling bad for these kind of people? No. She saw Xana was wearing her underwear, and she explained Xana was comfortable enough with the roommates that she would wear her underwear around them, so this was not unusual, which is honestly neither here nor there. Especially living with a bunch of girls, it's basically like you're just walking around in your bathing suit. It's not a big deal. 72. When asked about the lighting conditions inside the residence, she advised that possibly Xana's light was on. If the whole light in the bedroom was on, you would have seen her covered in red stuff. I don't care how fleeting of a glance it was. If you are able to discern whether she's wearing pants or not and which direction her body was laying, you would have seen the red stuff all over her and the floor if her light was on. But she doesn't know for sure. Or the party lights were on, and this is how she was able to see Xana, because otherwise she would not have been able to see her lying on the floor without any lights on. But she doesn't know whether she looked down a dark hallway and happened to see a silhouette with some barely little lights on, or if Xana's entire ass freaking light was on in her bedroom. Huge difference in visibility. Huge difference. She was not certain if the bathroom lights were on, but was not certain what lights were on, if any. See, the way they're wording this is horrible. Let's read the sentence again. She was not certain if the bathroom lights were on, but she was not certain what lights were on, if any. It's horrible. This also matters, though, because she's claiming that she heard crying from the bathroom. And not 2 minutes later, She doesn't know whether the light was on or not, but she knows Xana was on the floor. None of this is, again, knowing that she apparently quit drinking for hours before this, none of this is acceptable. None of it. She advised Xana did not say anything. Did you try to talk to her? Did you call her name and not get an answer? Because if you think that she's just passed out on the floor, what makes you think that she was going to say anything in the first place? Did you call out her name? Did you? Dylan stated she did not think anything was wrong. She was too scared to go to Xana's room. She was too scared to go to Xana's room, but didn't think anything was wrong. She later offered she may have been able to see Xana laying on the floor because they also had a Scentsy light, and it could have been she was able to see Xana from the Scentsy light. No. Go into a dark room with the Scentsy light on and tell me what you can see about 3 inches away from the damn container. About it. She explained she has been trying to determine what was real from everything that she had been talking about with Sergeant Blaker and myself. She advised she knew the time with blank, Kaylee and Maddie were real because she has the video of them together. I don't know what this portion means. I don't think this has anything to do with the grub truck. I think this is about the selfie videos or selfie video thingy that she was talking about earlier. I think that's what they're talking about. Which, again, why didn't y'all release those? Like, if you have them being, like, all buddy-buddy and shit, like, right before this, why didn't you release those photos? They'd be harmless, right? That would help the timeline. She was not certain how blank, in parentheses, then got home that day. Who's this for? Who is this about? Somebody blacked out? That's too small. Unless this is like how she, and then this is like Bethany. No, probably not. I don't know who this is about. Another redaction. She further explained she has been trying to piece things together because some things do not make sense to her. Okay. She stated that she is being truthful, but some of what she has been discussing, she is not certain is factual. She has been working through it to try to remember what happened. Dylan was asked if the female who was crying was saying anything, and she advised no. The female was only crying, and the male was the only one talking. Was it like a full-on conversation, though? Or was it just the one time? The 2 sentences, the one time. She described the item the suspect was holding was cylinder-shaped and was also triangular-shaped. She cannot remember if the lights were on or off when she encountered the male suspect. She advised she does not know if this is even something she saw or if it was something that she dreamed. So even herself is out here like, yeah, I don't even know if I saw this person for real. Could have been crap. There's no proof of anyone going in and out that house. There's no camera footage of anyone going in and out that house. And if they really had a car that they believed to be Bryan Kohberger's passing behind whenever Molly, the DoorDash driver, pulls into the King Road parking lot, because apparently they have a camera that shows that. You can't tell that it's his car from that close? You can't see who walked those footprints to the front of the house? You can't see into that backyard to see what the frick was going on with whoever went around that stump? I'm sorry. Release the footage that shows Molly. I've asked for it. Mikey S. sent me some information about what address it was. I asked for all the addresses in that building. It exists. The video that they apparently have the car on so close because of where it's actually aiming, they still couldn't tell that it was his car on that one. They had to use some freaking footage from Ridge Road blocks away, and then are trying to tell us that that matches what they're seeing on King Road. I'm sorry. You know, the government thinks we're stupid. That's why the government does the things that they do, because they know that we're not going to do anything. But it's changed over the past decade now, hasn't it? It's getting harder for them to keep acting like we're dumb. Y'all are wild. All the way out. She advised the last time she saw Xana was at blank house at approximately 11:04 p.m. Blank confirmed this by checking her cell phone. Dylan confirmed this. Xana had been holding a White Claw. She was at blank at 12:49 a.m. This would have been before Xana went to the party. Now, I need to go back into the timeline for this part because according to the book that has Maisie and Hunter speaking in it, when Ethan and Hunter got to the party, Xana was already there. And they only stayed at their sister's dance date thing for an hour. I don't know how long it took for them to go and drop her off and get back to the frat house or whatever, but it didn't seem like it would have taken that long. 11:04. Okay. She further advised Xana and Ethan did not stay at Ethan's house with any frequency. Because of Ethan's grades, he could not reside at the fraternity. He had his own apartment, but she does not know where his apartment is because she's never been there, which, again, we didn't know until recently. We knew about him not living at the frat, but we didn't know about the apartment. But, of course, he had to be living somewhere, right? We just automatically assumed, well, I did, that he was just living with Xana since it was temporary. I just figured he was just rooming with his chick until he got back into the frat house. I mean, that makes the most freaking sense, right? She knows Kaylee and Maddie were home when she went to bed and blank and from when she saw Xana lying on the floor, but she was not certain about whether Ethan was home. She advised she left blank in blank's house at approximately 12:49 a.m. to return home, which is why they say that she got home between 1:15 and 1:30. Yeah. Dylan stated this is such a strange time. Such a strange time. Dylan stated she is certain at 3:11 a.m., which through discussion might have been 2:11 a.m. Moscow time, that Kaylee, Maddie, blank, and she were all in the house. She was not certain about Xana and Ethan because she does not know when they came home. So this is also around the time that we were told by Judge Hippler that they were talking about going to get food up in Kaylee's room. And that's whenever we were told that even though this is a food situation and Xana and Ethan were a food situation, Xana and Ethan were not home for this food situation, which made it, a little bit more interesting. She denied perceiving a threat even after encountering the male in the hallway. But then up here, she says she's too scared to go to Xana's room. How are these idiots? How are two people from two different departments reading this, listening to this, living this event in real life, and not being like, but you just said, but hold on, you just said, but wait a minute, you just said, where's all that? I want the audio. I want the audio. I want to hear the police officer's reactions every time she says something contradictorial. I want to hear the inflections in the voices. I want all those things. She said there were people coming in and out of their house all the time. She denied remembering what his face looked like and said she could see that his head and mouth were covered, but she could see his eyebrows. See, this is the portion where Bryan Inton screwed up. This is the part where he said, but she did not see his eyebrows. Right here. The whole denied remembering his face thing. This is the sentence. Him coming out and reading it got me like, holy crap. She didn't even see his eyebrows. That's what she said from the very beginning. That makes, it matters. Because the eyebrows have been a thing from the very beginning. So for Mr. Mainstream to come out here and get it wrong while he's reading it in a video where Dylan's statement's the only thing that he cared about, that's the first thing that he came out and talked about. Not any of the other stuff. I mean, I know that there's other stuff in the video, but the first thing that he wanted to talk about was the thing that he knew was going to get everybody's attention the most. And then he didn't even read it right. So I hope he comes out and he corrects himself because that's not at all what was said. And that video got hundreds of thousands of views. And it doesn't matter what I believe when it comes to innocence or guilt. It doesn't matter that her not seeing his eyebrows or not seeing eyebrows goes into my narrative or what I believe. This was falsely read. And Inton needs to correct himself. She could see his eyebrows and further advised she was not certain she could see his nose. When asked if she knew what a balaclava was, and she said no, so I asked Sergeant Blaker to show Dylan a picture of a balaclava from his cell phone, and upon looking at a picture of a balaclava, she said it could have been, that could have been it. She does not remember seeing his mouth or nose, but she could see his eyebrows. See, she reiterates that again. Now, I know that it sounds, I've thought about this, okay? I know that it sounds interesting that we've seen photos of Dylan and her friends in these balaclava masks. But she might have not known that it was called that, because to me, it's just a ski mask. Like, to me, that's a bank robber mask. I didn't know the name of it, and I'm almost 40. So for her to be like, I don't know what that is, and then look at a picture and be like, yeah, and we know that she has one, that no longer really bothers me. Because she could have just thought it was a ski mask. She might have not even known like the specific name. I mean, who? I didn't. I'm just saying. I didn't. It's not really a big deal in my life. 84. When asked if any of her roommates told her about prior incidents involving anything that concerned them, and she advised Kaylee had told them, blank, and the other roommates about an incident a month prior when she was outside with Murphy about a subject who had been watching her. This subject was in the apartments above the girls' residence. See, now we also heard in the MPD reports that this person was watching her from the tree line. Let me look at something. Okay, so it could technically have been both. I guess technically. So the house was right here, and the apartments are over here, but there's still a tree line right here. And these are houses here. These are more apartments, but they mentioned a tree line. So is the person like watching from the apartments themselves? Or are they coming down and watching through the tree line? Or is the tree line just in the way of the view? Because I guess it could be both. I guess it could be. Though we also know from the MPD reports that there's friends of hers that remember her mentioning stuff like this since like back in May, before she even moved into King Road. And so some people were questioning, like, does she maybe think that whoever was stalking her back in May or before May maybe moved closer to where she is now at the King Road house, maybe into those apartments, and he's watching her, they're watching her now from another position, and maybe this so-say stalker is the reason why she's been at her parents' house. Because maybe she no longer felt safe there because of this person. And maybe that's also why Maddie and Bethany were the ones who took the dog outside instead of Kaylee taking the dog outside in the middle of the night in the dark because of weirdo in the apartments. I wonder who this person is. I wonder if they ever figured out who the stalker was, who the weirdo was. Because Bryan Kohberger didn't live in those apartments. And I don't think Enon Harsh lived in that building right there either. He lived in one of the buildings on the other side, if I can remember correctly. So I wonder who this was. 85. Dylan further explained that 2 or 3 weeks ago, while at Winco, Kaylee told her about a male subject who followed her from the Winco store all the way to Kaylee's car. Even when Kaylee went to leave, the subject was standing by Kaylee's car. Yeah, we heard about that. Also, 2 to 3 weeks ago, all of the roommates went to Starbucks together, and then when they got home, the front door was wide open. And they do not believe it had been open when they left. She explained there were prior issues with the front door, which is what we've been told too, that neither the front door and the back slider both had problems. Beautiful, isn't it? So she said it was possible the door opened because there had been a snowstorm, and she explained possibly the wind caused the door to open. Also, when they got home, the washer was going, which she described was not unusual, but this also concerned her. I asked the question, did you check it? Like I said this in the live when we went over Brian Inton's shit. Did you check it? Was it some stranger's clothes or was it your roommate's clothes? Because if it was your roommate's clothes, then why are you mentioning it? Why are you mentioning it like it's something that's part of like the freak out of the door being opened? You know what I mean? Now, in the other reports, they said something about how the wind was blowing the door so hard they had to like end up retightening up the hinges. That's in the Moscow reports. So that's important too. I don't know what the wind was like that night. Probably not that strong though. I don't remember hearing anything about wind picking up. But this next portion here is interesting. She explained because of these things, they went to get Ethan's golf clubs to protect themselves when they searched the house. And some people were like, oh, did you mention that so that we knew why your DNA and your fingerprints were on them? Because we also need to remember the defense took and kept Ethan's golf clubs as evidence. That was said so by his own family. Dylan explained weeks prior to the 13th, Kaylee told the roommates she heard a woman scream, but no one else heard it. Okay. Dylan was asked if she was telling either Sergeant Blanker or I anything to prevent us from solving this. And she advised no, that she understood my question. And she advised that she knew she did not sleep through the whole incident because she had texted communications and other things that she knows would have required her to be awake. She advised she knows what she heard, especially about hearing who she believed was Kaylee crying and the male voice telling her he was there for her. She stated again she does not know how much of what she had been telling us was not factual because she is still processing the events. So she's going back to it being Kaylee, even though up there she said that after gathering more information, it was probably Xana, but she keeps saying it was Kaylee. I thought you gathered more info and changed your mind. When asked why she believes she was spared after the male suspect saw her, she said she does not know why, and she does not believe anyone ever tried to open her door during the time he was in the house, and he could have easily done so. And why he would have passed by her room multiple times, she volunteered. This is where it gets even stupider. Because what are you talking about? She advised that to come through the sliding glass door, the person would have had to have scaled a tall wall. No, you would have had to just walk through the parking lots. What are you talking about? She advised the suspect would have known her room would have been occupied because he appeared to have known the layout of the house. How do you know that? Like, if you literally saw this person one time, even though I don't believe you at all, because your story keeps changing. He was either in the hallway 3 feet away from you, or you saw him walking out the back slider through the kitchen, because that's what, the cops are at least stating. And that's nowhere near 3 feet. That's like 15 feet. But then again, the way that she keeps describing shit is like she's talking about the 3rd floor balcony. You would have to scale a wall to come in through that door. That's crazy. Why would you use that porch area when there's such a drop off? What do you mean a drop off? You literally have parties there every night with that door wide open and people coming in and out. Nobody falls to their death. There's no drop off. No one is Spider-Man. What are you talking about? Now, I know that the people that think that there's something up with that ladder is going to take this and be like, whoa. And honestly, at this point, I don't think I can blame them because she's describing the 3rd floor. Whatever the frick she's talking about, and you're going to see it again here. There's another statement she makes about the drop off. This is the 3rd floor. So how would you have seen anything to do with something that you would have to scale a wall to get in and something that has a drop off whenever you leave if you were on the 2nd floor? Dylan herself does not make any coherent sense. None. And if you're seeing this person one time, how do you know that it looks like they know the house? Is it because of what you've been told? Or did you see more, if anything? Like, just that statement alone, was that fed to you by a police officer? Was that fed to you by somebody who was listening to the story? By a cop that saw the way that things happen? Was that fed to you? Or did you see this person actually maneuvering through the house like they knew it? Which one? Especially this last sentence. She also said it could have been someone who was in the house last year when other girls were living in the house. Putting the blame on previous residents and some sort of affiliation with that. She advised there was no one she knows who would have wanted to hurt the girls, and the girls were loved by everyone. She said she had never heard even rumors which were negative about any of the victims. When asked about Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, Jack, she advised the breakup was mutual and they have their dog Murphy in common, and Jack comes to their residence and plays with Murphy, and he and Kaylee continue to be friends. When asked if they co-parented Murphy, she said yes. Kaylee told her the relationship with Jack had run its course. Dylan thought Jack had handled the breakup well because every time he came to their house, there did not seem to be an issue. There's a document in the Moscow PD documents that a lot of people believe is Jack, about a mental health check. And it was like previous to the crime, because like the dog is mentioned in like a couple other things, and it just makes it sound as if Jack Jukor was mentally not having a good time. Something was going on. Probably had a lot to do with the breakup. I don't know. But it's in there, and it's very specific. So the majority of people, including myself, do believe that it's about Jack Jukor. Dylan brought up the name Blank, but she mispronounced his name during the interview as someone she and others believed might be involved, but she was reluctant to say he was a suspect because she knows how damaging to his reputation that could be if he were not involved. Who are you talking about? I couldn't figure out who she was talking about here. I thought maybe it could have been Schwalter, but I don't know. She advised she was told by Blank, Xana's best friend, that would be Emily, that Blank once punched a friend of theirs, Blank, in the stomach last year, but Dylan did not know the circumstances as to why. See, I'm not sure who she's talking about. But she's instantly, I know that in the Amazon series, Emily, I think it was, had mentioned like seeing Jack Showalter in the grub truck footage and saying that she herself like reported him as a possible like suspect. Like she herself called the cops and was like, hey, what about that guy? You know? Okay. Blank advised that recently Kaylee started talking to Blank. Blank seemed okay with that. So I'm guessing Jack knew that Kaylee was talking to somebody. Blank offered her DNA, Dylan. Sergeant Blaker secured a swab from Blank at the conclusion of the interview. She advised this is where it's fun. She advised there might be difficult. Oh my God, the writing. There might be difficulty. I can't believe these are state employees. There might be difficulty in locating the offender's DNA, is how that sentence should have gone, because they had conducted a deep clean of their residence leading up to the parents' weekend, which was a week before this. Okay. A deep clean a week before a crime takes place means that you have lessened the trash. You have lessened the contaminants that the forensic team would have to go through in order to find said DNA. But how much am I supposed to believe that? If you're wanting us to believe that the DNA that was blood on the handrail on the bottom floor is too old to matter or could have been from anything, if they deep cleaned a week before, wouldn't that tell you that it probably needed to be taken a hell of a lot more seriously, because that would have meant that it was less than a week old? You're in college and you don't know that cleaning the house beforehand does not make it more difficult, that it makes it easier? That's the opposite of what this would do. Why would you say something like that? Why would you say something like that? When asked about when the deep clean of the residence occurred, it would have been before the weekend of the crimes. She was advised there was evidence left in the residence, and she sighed and said she was glad to hear that there was evidence found at the scene. Now, this could be interpreted multiple ways, which is why we need to hear it. Because depending on the inflection in the sigh, and yes, you can hear it even in audio, this could be a sigh of relief, like, oh, I'm so glad they found something. Or a sigh like, oh shit, we didn't clean something up right. And in the audio, you can tell which one it is. I really wish that we could hear it. Because then right after this, we have this entirely redacted statement. Again, what does this say? What does this say? When asked if she would be able to provide a description to a police composite artist, she said she would not be able to describe enough of the suspect to be helpful. She further advised the only thing she remembered about his face was that his eyebrows were bushy. And again, it sounds like she's being asked these questions, not just like freely giving the information when it comes to certain things. She advised she was confused about why the offender would have taken the patio door out of the residence because of the drop-off from the patio. So tell me how you're supposed to make me believe that he walked in front of your bedroom door in the hallway, or that you're now claiming that you watched him walk out of the patio door, which would be from the kitchen, but then say something like this. This would mean that whoever this was would have walked out of Kaylee's bedroom onto that balcony and like jumped off. Is what this is basically like alluding to. She advised she remembered that cars do come to their residence a lot, but she said there was a black truck driving past Blank's window, which would probably be Bethany's because that's where she was after the fact. And she further said she was not absolutely certain it was a black truck, but there was a vehicle that went by their residence and she could see the taillights, but she did not remember if the headlights were on. But what drew her attention to it was the red lights on the back of the truck. And when asked if she meant brake lights, she said yes. Now, I know that there's a black truck in body cam footage from the Banfield stuff. And I know that there's a black truck that leaves around 423 in the Linda Lane footage. We mentioned it whenever we went over this. When Brian didn't put this out, we talked about this. I'm going to go in and try to get all that footage and sort of like put it together as much as I possibly can with what we have, because this would have been around the time, if this will load now, that she would have been down there. It was like 427-ish, 428-ish. Well, this is taking forever. So if the truck would have like pulled out at 423, and when she happened to look out the window, she didn't see any headlights, but just saw what would be considered brake lights. It sure looks like the person who gets into that truck is running from the direction of King Road. If you look at it, that's what it looks like. So who's to say that this truck didn't belong to someone involved in the situation? Maybe they did go out that third floor patio, and maybe they did jump off of the balcony, and then maybe they did run to their truck, and then maybe they did put their brakes on in front of King Road because maybe they were picking up someone else. I don't know. The Idaho Statesman released whatever they got, and according to them, it stops at like 320 something. But that's why I asked for the 11-12 footage, because I want all of it. I don't want this 35, 40-minute boo-boo. Give me the whole freaking thing, because there's a reason why you're stopping it right there. If not 3 to 4, maybe 5 whole minutes later, we've got a black truck now coming into view that she's telling you about, and you're cutting off the camera right before that truck would have been parked in front of the house. What are you hiding? Show us the freaking truck. Show us the truck. When asked what occurred right after she went into Bethany's bedroom, she said they eventually fell asleep, and when she awakened, she was lying next to Bethany in Bethany's bed. Never mind all the rest of that stuff, though, right? Never mind the rest of it. She advised a friend of theirs, Blank and Blank's mother, are planning a memorial event that has helped her emotionally. She advised Blank is crying a lot over this, but she has not been crying, and Blank has explained to her why she has not been showing emotion. So Bethany's been crying her face out, and Dylan doesn't give a shit. Or at least her body is emotionally reacting like she doesn't give a shit. She advised a friend of theirs, okay, blank. She explained Blank used the words disassociate to describe her emotions. Yeah, I'm not really buying that. I'm sorry. I'm just not. There's too much inconsistency. It's intentional inconsistency. When she awakened that morning, Blank was next to her in bed. They were both too scared to leave Blank's room to even go to the bathroom. So you perceived no threat. You perceived no threat, but you were too scared to go down to Xana's room. You apparently went to grab your taser at some point too, according to what you told Moscow, but it's not in this one for some reason. Neither here nor there, I guess. And now, 8 hours later, you're still too scared, even though you perceived no threat? What? No. She advised at approximately, oh, this is the next part. They were too scared to leave to even go to the bathroom. But you perceived no threat. Mm-hmm. She advised at approximately 11:23 a.m., then corrected the time to 10:23 a.m. She texted Maddie asking her if she was up. Let's see. See, yeah, this is what Judge Hippler did too. He did this exact same thing. He started it at 10:23. Whenever it actually starts with Dylan again, like it has Dylan on Instagram at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? There's really only a 3-hour gap for Bethany. But Ann Taylor says that Dylan's stuff is consistent all night long. And we know that there was evidence that was going to be presented that had something about video and photos being taken, edited, something else, and then deleted. There was going to be a guy that was supposed to be coming in and talking about all that stuff and about the conversation that she had with her father. Something very specific was in that conversation that the defense felt was extremely important. I want to know. I want to know. But we have Dylan on Instagram at 8 o'clock in the morning to 10. She's on Instagram for 2 hours. 2 hours. Just on the gram. 2 hours. But she doesn't tell them anything about being up 8 o'clock in the morning? Nothing at all. She starts off at 10:23, which by this point, she's been again on Instagram for 2 hours. And she's been on Snapchat since 10 o'clock in the morning. Sending and getting messages. Incoming and outgoing Snapchats. To who? To who? Because it tells us when she's messaging the victims. So, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Then she gets back on Instagram. Then she gets on Indeed. And then she does more Snapchat stuff. And then she texts Maddie. She doesn't mention none of that shit here. She didn't mention a damn thing about any of that here. Amazing, isn't it? She texted Maddie asking her if she was up. At 10:29, because remember, we're in a different time zone, she texted Kaylee, "Are you up?" And let's see how much stuff is in between there, okay? Here we have Dylan texting Maddie. This is 10:23. Dylan gets back on Instagram at 10:24. Dylan then goes on Snapchat for another 15 minutes, going back and forth with who knows who. Then we believe that this is it Jenna McClure? Sends a text to Bethany at 11:21. But we don't really know what prompted that. We don't know if that was like something that was going to happen because Jenna just reached out to her randomly, or if there was something else that was done by Bethany first and then she's getting a response. I think there's more to that somewhere else. Like now that I'm talking about it out loud, I feel like we've seen more about this right here somewhere else. I'm going to have to go back and look. And then it shows at 10:56 to 11:29, Dylan is on Instagram and she's also messaging on Snapchat. She's just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. She's doing all of that. And then she sends Kaylee a text at 11:29. So the 11:29 was the actual Moscow time. So we've got 10:23 that she texts Maddie about being awake. All of this social media bullshit. And then over an hour later, she then messages Kaylee. Okay. She could tell her Snapchats were not being read when she was texting them through Snapchat. Dylan advised she called Blank, one of her closest friends, about what happened that night with the masked man. Dylan then explained when she reached out to Blank in the text message, which Blank told her was at 10:50 a.m., but she thinks Blank was mistaken. Blank told her she would send blank to their house because of their concerns about what had occurred during the night. So this would be, why did she just say 10:50? Would that be 11:50? Okay. Okay, so we have JM texting Bethany at 11:21, and then Bethany calls the person at 11:59, and then at 11:50, that person then texts Dylan. Dylan calls Emily. There's no text messages between Dylan and Emily. See right here? I thought I had it showing. There's no text messages, apparently. And Emily has only ever said it was a phone call. So JM would be the person that Dylan is texting. And this person's also texting Bethany. Is it being talked about here? Like, does this person not show up? Because Josie is with Emily and Hunter. So this other person, this Jenna lady, this Jenna chick, is somewhere else completely. And there's frantic messages. And I say frantic because they're back to back to back. So I wonder who she was saying she was going to send over there, because Emily ended up getting the phone call. And see, this next part doesn't make a lot of sense either, because the story that we were told by Hunter, Emily, and Josie is that by the time they all got there, Dylan and Bethany were outside with their hands over their mouths. So this next part doesn't make a lot of sense to me. She advised blank then came downstairs. Wait, hold on. She was still, hold on, I'm stuck. Where are we at? Okay. When blank got to the house, which she described was before noon, she was not certain if he came in through an unlocked front door or had to use the code to the front door to get into the residence. And when he got into the house, he asked about the location of a knife, and she directed him to a knife. They said you were outside. The guy that you're talking about right now said you and your little friend were already outside of the house covering your faces with your hands. So what you mean you don't know if he came in through a door or not? You were out there waiting for him with the door wide open, according to 3 other people. I also don't recall them ever claiming he asked where a knife was, because he'd been in that house like 1,000 million times. He knew where a knife was. So I find it interesting that they're saying that he asked for that, because I don't think that that was mentioned before. I don't really honestly feel like that's true, because he would have known. She advised she initially went upstairs from Blank's bedroom with Blank, and she advised when she saw Xana, she realized Xana had not moved since she saw her earlier. So she was so intoxicated that she doesn't know what was going on, but she knows for a fact that her memory is so perfect that 8 hours before, she knows for sure Xana hasn't moved an inch. Tells you right there that she wasn't drunk, because she wouldn't have remembered that specifically to be like, oh, she hasn't moved. You wouldn't have remembered that, especially after sleeping. Full of shit. Full of shit. She was still thinking Xana was still passed out from being drunk. She's covered in blood. She's got over 30 stab wounds, right? Or is it her that had over 50? I know Kaylee had like 20 something. I think Kaylee had 20 something and Xana had like 30. Something like that. Came out in the MPD reports. There's blood everywhere. She's in her freaking underwear. You can't see the blood all over her legs. You can't. It's daylight now, baby. It's noon. I don't give a damn if the lights are on or not. There's windows in that entire freaking house. You're sitting there telling me that at noon you're calling 911 and you see her on the ground and you're like, she's probably still drunk. Daylight. They breathe the same air we breathe. They live amongst us. This. Ignorant. AF. Hunter then sent Dylan downstairs. She advised blank and blank came over after blank came to the house. That'd be Josie and Emily. Because she had asked them to come to the house. She advised blank then came downstairs, and she could tell by his facial expression he had seen something, and he told them to call 911. So does this mean that y'all were down at the bottom floor now? Because the cops show up, Hunter Johnson's brought back outside, and at this point, no one has said a word about Kaylee and Maddie. They like were, the cops came upon them. They weren't told that they were there. They actually checked Kaylee's room first before even realizing what was happening, because they were just going like in whatever their protocol was. They didn't know. They had no clue that they were upstairs. Okay, Blank was the one to call 911, which is Bethany. But it's still interesting, though, because Josie says that it was Dylan. And she was there whenever the 911 call took place. So that's crazy. And Blank at one point said she was on the phone with police dispatch, and the dispatcher was asking her about a defibrillator. That part was Dylan. They told dispatch there were people unconscious. Blank denied seeing Xana or any of the other victims' bodies. But you just said you did see her. See what I mean? She literally just said she advised when she saw Xana, she realized Xana had not moved since she saw her earlier. She was still thinking Xana was still passed out from being drunk. And then the very last thing, she denied seeing Xana or any of the other victims' bodies. No, it cannot be both. She advised they stayed in the house when the police arrived, and the police, were putting the tape up when they realized there had been a crime, and when they saw the ambulance arrive and leave. Blank told them she would not leave unless there was no reason to stay. Y'all were not inside the house. Y'all were outside next to the dumpster. Okay. Dylan told them they would not leave unless there was no reason to stay. She then advised the vandal alert came out, and that is when they realized their friends were actually gone. So I know that like Emily said that, and like apparently she went off on the first cop that came out because she was like, what the frick? Like, this is how you're going to tell us? But this whole thing right here doesn't make a lot of sense because they were definitely not inside. She advised they all realized there had actually been a murder committed in their residence. She said Kaylee had a balcony, and she remembered looking at the pictures in the news, and Kaylee's curtains were all messed up. She thought the distance of the balcony to the ground may have been too much and brought too much attention if that is how the suspect made entry into the house through Kaylee's bedroom. That's interesting. Kaylee's curtains didn't look the way that they were supposed to. She would know. She lived with her. When asked if she checked the house for anyone else when she initially came home for the night with Blank, and she was asked if she had to unlock the front door, she advised she believes she had to unlock the front door to get into the residence. But it was a PIN code that half the time didn't work. Even Jeff Kernodle has said that. And no, he didn't change a lock. He said Xana changed a lot because she was living with Ethan and helping him get his grades up, so that we can clear that up in that same sentence. She advised when she first got home, she remembered the sliding door was closed, but she did not know if it was locked. It didn't lock, apparently. She advised when she first got home, she went to Kaylee's bedroom to let Murphy out of Kaylee's room, and Kaylee's lights were on, but no one was in Kaylee's room. Murphy came back into the house after going outside. See, they just opened the door and let him out. And honestly, it was the same thing with Buddy the dog. Like, people can be like, oh my God, they lost their dog. They didn't care about that dog. You know why I know they didn't care about that dog? That dog was the size of my headphones. And they let that poor baby out in the middle of the night, and he did not come back inside. And home dude just went to bed. Left this little bitty old thing outside by himself in the middle of the night, hearing all these noises, all these dogs barking. He admitted to it, and then he just went to bed because the dog was taking too long to come in the house. Facts matter. That's all I'm saying. Facts matter. I find this interesting that they were still doing this, even after they said that they would let Murphy out and he would not come back whenever he was supposed to, like somebody was trying to coax him into sticking around. That's why I feel like he was groomed by somebody, to where even if they weren't trying to just like do something in the house with him still in the house, he was used to them enough to where they could remove him. Because remember, Dylan says it sounds as if Dylan was like Murphy was moving away from the house. And we know that the cops have him outside barking for half an hour after the suspect vehicle leaves. So if y'all were too scared to even leave to pee, who let the dog in? Who let the dog in? to later have been found underneath Kaylee's desk. Who let the dog in around 5 o'clock in the morning whenever all the barking abruptly stopped, according to every neighbor ever? Who? Can't wait to find that out if we ever do. Sergeant Blaker asked Dylan about the login and username for the router of the Wi-Fi at the residence, and Blank advised Kaylee was responsible for that bill. She was leaving. And it doesn't matter if, like, somebody else pays the bill, you're using that Wi-Fi, so you know the password. He's not asking you for the account login information. He's asking you for the Wi-Fi password. So again, are we in college and don't know the difference between the freaking bill and how to use the Wi-Fi? Is that what we're being told here? She further explained she nor Blank were responsible for the Wi-Fi bill because they had just moved into the residence in August. So did Kaylee. Pretty much June, July-ish. Like it just happened over the summer. It just happened. Blank, this is what's, see the I'm sorry? See the I'm sorry? Blank, meaning not Catlin, not Gooch and not Blaker. Somebody else is there for this interview and pulls Dylan out of this interview after it's done to ask her additional questions that were done off camera. This is a third investigator, a third person. Blank had some follow-up questions for Dylan outside of the interview, and as a result, the audio recording was turned off at 2:11. Who the frick is this? Who in the frick is this? And why are you turning off the camera? Why are you turning off the camera? Yep. Insane, right? Please do not forget to leave a like on your way out and subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed already. Okay, you guys. See y'all.